You know what's going on, don't you?
Yes.
You always know. You just can't be bothered to tell anyone. It's like it's some kind of a game and only you know the rules. You knew all about that inscription being a computer program, but you didn't tell me. You know all about that old bottle and you're not telling me. Am I so stupid?
No, that's not it.
Why then? I want to know.
Evil since the dawn of time.
What do you mean?
Nobody stop asking me these questions.
Tell me!
The beginning of all beginnings. Two forces only, good and evil. Then chaos. Time is born. Matter, space. The universe cries out like a newborn. The forces shatter as the universe explodes outwards. Only echoes remain. And somehow, the evil force survives. An intelligence. Pure evil.
That's Fenric.
No, that's just Millington's name for it. Evil has no name. Trapped inside a flask, like a genie in a bottle.
Can we stop it?
We need to get that flask.
Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always...
Hello, it's Scott.
Yes, it is Scott indeed, and this week we are concluding our Curse of Fenric deep dive with parts 3 and 4, and I think I'm going to do something slightly different than what I do normally, because normally if we're doing a two-parter, I'll do it on this day for both parts 1 and part 3. This week, I'm not doing that, and definitely not because I forgot to. Just because I think it makes a more cohesive two-parter if everybody in part 1 just listens to the On This Day bit, and that's where the writing history is, and then you lead into part 2 and we just jump straight into the episode. So I think we should just jump straight ahead in with episode 3, unless you've got anything you want to add.
The only thing I have to add in this one is Ian Briggs knew that Doctor Who famously sags in the middle, there's not a lot happening. Here, Ian Briggs is like, okay, this is the part where I want all the action to happen. It's the part where I want some nice little character moments. And we get some nice little character moments as a result, which is very rare for Doctor Who, because usually this is a part where they're running back and forth around corridors.
It is indeed, and there is some running back and forth between corridors. There's some teleporting. Rather than they cut out the corridors and they just went from point A to point B. But yeah, let's just jump straight in. Let's go.
You're right. What is it? What's wrong? Tell me. What's the matter? I'll do anything. What's this? It is with deepest sorrow that I write to inform you that the ship on which your husband, Frank William Dudman, was serving was struck by enemy torpedoes. Your husband was trapped in the fire and has been listed as missing, presumed dead. Please accept our sincere condolences. Sorry.
So, the episode begins as every episode of Doctor Who does, with the Doctor escaping near danger. Although this time he doesn't really escape it, as he does get interrupted by another soldier running in. So if you remember last week, the Doctor was with the big computer machine. It was going haywire and there was no way to turn it off. And this is where we're picking up now. And there is no way to turn off the machine. They don't... Do they ever turn off the machine? I feel like they just kind of forget it's on. Just realizing that now. I don't think they ever... Maybe it does come back, but I don't remember it coming back into the plot again.
Again, as we said last week, there's a lot of juggling plot points. It's hard to keep track of a computer, because I watched this today. I can't remember if it comes back or not.
Yeah, I'm starting to think it doesn't actually come back.
I guess we'll find out at the end of this.
But a soldier runs in, and the captain, evil captain man, is like, go radio out whatever it is, I need you to radio out. And that guy's like, hey, you said to destroy all the radios, so we're destroying all the radios. And the guy's like, what? Why did I tell you to do that? And everybody goes running to the radios, where we see a guy with an axe just chopping away, chopping at a radio, which, as I messaged you, this seems like a really ineffective way of getting, like it's, well, effective, but
yeah,
it wouldn't be my first choice. I'd cut the cables.
Yeah,
and
I just love it for, it's silly Doctor Who, it's as silly as Ace pointing to the dangerous sign behind her last episode. It's just silly camp fun, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely silly. Just hacking away with an axe. And then, he's like, oh, I've done it, sir. It's following your orders. I've destroyed all the radios. And the Doctor's got this great line where he's like, oh, good, well done, sir. Or well done. Now, put them back together. Which, annoyingly, we don't ever see that soldier's reaction. It would have been great to tie it off with the soldier just looking like, because he decided to hack them with an axe.
It would be hilarious if we cut to the end of the next episode and he's still... At the very end of the episode, he's still working away trying to fix it all, which would be like, how the fuck do I fix this? An axe went through it.
Yeah, that would be great. The Doctor, the priest, and Ace walk outside, and suddenly it's raining, and suddenly the Doctor has an umbrella. I'm going to guess...
the Seventh Doctor is always
he's always carrying it.
Umbrella.
Yeah, he's always carrying it.
Yeah.
I just forget it's an umbrella. In my head, it's always like a walking stick or something. Yeah, but in my head, this is because it was raining on the day, and they didn't have any other time to shoot, and they're like, we're just going to have to deal with it. It's just raining in this scene.
As we said last week, they're dealing with all kinds of weather. Rain, snow, wind. It's not a good shoot.
Yeah, and it unfortunately creates a little bit of a plot hole later on regarding the weather, because it is raining right now, and there is a line coming up where the Doctor says it is not raining.
I guess he could be right in thinking, it's not raining right now, but it would still cause a flood because it was raining half an hour ago.
It was raining mere moments ago.
But believe it or not, the guy recording the sound was not happy by the scene because of the constant hitting of the rain on the umbrella. It is loud.
It is, although I found it quite... I'm a big fan of rain on film and TV because it makes me feel cozy watching it, and that almost ASMR feel of the rain hitting off the umbrella was just like, ooh, I feel warm,
Yeah.
But this is also where we get some interesting information about the vampires, or the, what are they, hemorrhoids? No,
now I'm just thinking hemorrhoids. Hermavoids?
Hemorrhoids. We find out that these vampires are actually what humans will evolve into in a few thousand years, which is a huge massive reveal in Doctor Who lore that I don't think the Doctor seems awfully concerned about.
If you remember the episode Orphan 55,
I do not.
Okay, it's the Jodie Whittaker era where they're on this planet and it's being ruined by pollution or whatever, and there's these monsters that are attacking the planet. It turns out the planet is Earth, and the monsters are deformed humans. I think it might be based off of this.
It could be a way to tie it in, I suppose.
Well, yeah, nobody remembers Orphan 55. That episode was not very good.
Yeah, I remember it being... I remember the reviews it got.
Yeah.
I don't really remember the contents of the episode.
I remember the old lady always shouting for her husband, Benji! Benji!
I don't remember that at all.
And then Benji fucking dies.
Rest in
Brilliant.
peace. But the Doctor and that are like, oh, we've got to go back. I think they're going to the church because there's some book or something they need to get there. And Ace is like, oh, I don't want to go back. I've got to go find the baby because the baby's in danger, and it's for some reason it's calling to me. I've got to go save this baby. And the Doctor's like, okay, bye. And Ace goes off to see this baby, and this is where we're starting to see a lot more of Ace's motherly, more mature side coming out, which comes out rapidly fast in these next few episodes.
Yeah. On paper it's very bizarre that she would suddenly take so much interest in this random baby, but I guess it's you know, we know the ending of episode 4 now, both of us,
Yes.
obviously, because
Yes.
you watched these 2 episodes finally.
I did indeed. I do
And
my prep. I do my prep.
And I presume it's just something in the time stream making. It's like a magnet, kind of. Something is pulling Ace towards the baby to make sure it's okay, because also the baby is her mum.
Spoilers, jeez. Yeah. Then we cut to the Russian soldiers who are dealing with one of their dead on the beach as the oncoming hemorrhoids attack them.
You know,
I'm going to keep calling them hemorrhoids.
The Russian soldiers dealing with one of the dead on the beach can pretty much describe every scene with the Russian soldiers in this story.
They do nothing.
Yeah, we just hang around on the beach all day. That's their job.
Yeah, they do nothing. But the vampires are coming up. They're like, we've got to kill the vampires, and then they pick up the dead body and kind of run away from the vampires. It's definitely a scene in an episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
We then cut to Ace and the lady with the baby, where Ace accidentally is quite rude to the lady when, you know, she's like, oh, how's the baby doing, you know, how's your boyfriend, you know, do you have a boyfriend? And the lady's like, I'm married, I have a child, which is, you know, just showcasing the difference in I guess culture, you know, from the 1940s to the 80s,
which, I mean, it's only like 45 years or whatever, and it's a massive difference. It's insane to think how much society has progressed since then. Like, and I just love the touch of her accidentally offending her grandmother for presuming, you know, that she just has a boyfriend, she's not married, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and this is also where Ace is like, I never thought that I'd ever get married, but nowadays I'm not too sure about that. Maybe I would like to get married, which is this, you know, wanting to settle down coming into Ace's mind. Which is pretty convenient because she's only got one story left.
Yeah, and also is a big theme in the next episode where she's like, I kind of want to get away from you, Doctor, but at the end she chooses more adventures with the Doctor, which we never see, which is really sad.
Yeah, she chooses more adventures with the Doctor, but the Doctor decides, no thanks. We then get a scene with the Professor and his lover, the General, as they're talking about, you know, the chains of the curse or whatever, and the Professor's like, the chains of Fenric, who cares about them? What about my chains? You know, I'm this disabled. He's talking about his frustration of being disabled, where the General's like, come on, this was 20 years ago. Why are you making me think about this now? Which is obviously referring to what you brought up last week about him being responsible for disabling or paralyzing even this poor professor.
Also, you know, him wanting to break free from his chains in the same conversation while talking about Fenric, you know, is foreshadowing. It's perfect foreshadowing, which I never caught on to in the first viewing of this. I did like last week. I forgot about this.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We then cut back to the Russian soldiers who are doing what they do best, standing around doing nothing, watching the extremely slow-moving vampires. Like, I don't understand. I don't get why they made these vampires such... Like, they're just not a threat, really. I guess they're a threat in large numbers, like what we see in a moment, but right now when they're like, I don't know, 35 feet away, all the Russian soldiers are standing around casually being like, oh yeah, no, look at that.
Yeah, but they certainly feel more like zombies than vampires. I'm not sure why we didn't just make them zombies. It feels more appropriate, but...
Especially with them rising from, like, they could be like drowned Vikings brought back to life by the two vampire girls and make them more... evil, I guess, you know, or just they're just brought back by Fenric. Like, Fenric's curse is that he brings back the drowned, you know. But yeah, the Russian soldiers are basically like, oh yeah, I don't believe in vampires, even though they're literally in front of them. Like, they're looking at them.
And then, you know, one of the Russians is like, but vampires don't exist, and the other Russian is like, of course not. Well, so in the original cut, they would have had him say, of course not, and he's starting to sharpen a stake. which is brilliant.
Yeah, that would have been great.
And I wish it was in this version, because it made me laugh out loud. Like,
you do see in the backpack of one of the Russians here, he does have a stake in his backpack.
The thing about the stakes is it comes into play later on in the extended cut, but it's not in the actual episode, so we're just walking around with stakes, which is very random.
That's such a shame. That's a missed opportunity right there. Yeah. But yeah, they're basically talking about how there was this excursion in, I think, German-controlled Romania, is what they said.
Yeah.
and everybody died except one dude, and that one dude was like, it's vampires. Vampires killed everybody. Basically just being like, this isn't the first time the vampires have attacked, which is an interesting plot point to bring up that never gets mentioned.
Yeah.
Per Romania, covered in
I
vampires.
know, right?
We then cut to the Doctor and Ace and the Vicar in the church. Ace makes a comment about the church looking like a fort again. Does that come into play again at some point?
I mean, it really does, because it actually does, because, later on the whole fight takes place as if it's a fortress rather than a church.
I suppose. I guess it's just their way of getting around it, not looking like a... Just make sure people know that this church doesn't look like a church, so they're not confused. But they just, start going through the book looking for, battles or stuff that happened here. And the Doctor has this great line because the Vicar's like, I don't remember any battles, here being written in this book. And the Doctor's like, yes, well, today's events haven't been written yet, have they? Which is just an excellent line. I very much enjoy that line. But Ace and the Doctor go into the back room looking for something evil. They're looking for an artifact of some kind. And Ace is trying to be like, okay, can I get some clues as to what I should be looking for? The Doctor gives her basically nothing and says, just find something evil, is what he says while he's being a cartoon and dropping stuff on his toes.
Yeah, well, it was unscripted clowning by Sylvester McCoy. He just loves the physical humor, but when Sylvester McCoy started as a Doctor, he was given more comedic stuff like this, but over time he gradually wanted more and more darkness to his character, and I think that really goes off, started from now, because this episode really shows off a dark side of the Doctor later on.
Yeah, especially with his big speech about Ace. Yeah.
Oh boy, can't wait to get to that.
My God. Ace goes into the room and she finds the evil white pot from before that was dropped on top of bricks and is indestructible. She's like, this looks pretty evil, and stuffs it into her backpack. I'm sure it won't come back into play later on. Ha 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 ha.
So when I was watching this before, I was thinking, okay, why is she picking that up and realizing it's probably part of the evil stuff that's going on? But when that whole scene, the Doctor not giving her any details about what's actually going on, it comes into play later on, which is really makes it work, because otherwise Ace kind of looks stupid for not telling the Doctor about the pot she just found.
The Vicar calls the Doctor and that back in, and he's like, I found the Vikings that we're looking for, and there's some interesting names of the, he says the father of the Viking and his wife, and they go through the daughters. And the daughters are Sarah, Martha, Jane, Clara, and Annie, which you could take from that Sarah, Jane, Martha, Clara, and we don't know an Annie yet, but...
No. Next companion, maybe.
Next companion called... If the next companion is called Annie, I will freak out, because it's such a weird coincidence that, Martha, Clara, and Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane written as two separate names, but you can cheese it a little bit.
Yeah, Sarah Jane makes it feel like there was some kind of reference to Sarah Jane here, and this is not the only reference to companions in this episode, by the way. We'll get to that a bit later on.
Yeah, but the Martha and Clara one, coincidence? Most definitely, most probably, but maybe not. Maybe because Russell T Davies and Moffat, maybe they were both fans of this episode for whatever reason, and we're just like, I need to name a character. Let's go back. What's a name I could name somebody?
We'll get to it, but with the whole Ace subplot in this story, it feels like they took a lot of inspiration from her storyline here, and of course, it feels like they must have been fans of this episode at least.
Yeah.
But then we get a really nice looking shot in a graveyard filled with smoke, and that's shot by John Nathan Turner. It really looks atmospheric and spooky, and it's a gothic horror. It really works.
Yeah, and that'll bring up my question for you. What do you think about the costume for the hemorrhoids?
I'm kind of mixed on them, because them wearing Victorian garb or whatever they're wearing really works, because it makes it feel like they're parts of different time periods. Some of them are 500 years old, some of them are 100 years old, and it really works. But the actual masks themselves kind of look way too rubbery for my liking.
Yeah, that's how I feel about them basically as well. That's how I feel especially about Cthulhu when Cthulhu shows up, because I
Yeah.
think the actual costume is amazing. But then there's just something where you're like, it just looks a little bit too cheap though. But it's this amazing
Yeah.
looking costume.
It really on a better budget. Like, this is the lowest of the lows in terms of budget for Doctor Who. On a better budget, you could make them look really good. And I think the actual designs are really solid and they really look like they work. I think maybe making the blue a bit darker as well could have worked. 'Cause the way it just comes across, it's like bright blue and it feels like a Power Rangers villain almost.
Yeah. And then we're back at the church with the doctor and that, and there's a puddle on the floor. And Ace is like, "Why is there this puddle on the floor?" And the vicar's like, "Oh, that happens when it's raining. Sometimes it's a leaky pipe." And I was like, "Oh, that's a fun way of explaining why it was raining earlier." And he's like, "It happens when there's an easterly wind." And the doctor's like, "But it's not raining, and the wind's blowing westwardly." And I was like, it very much was raining the last time you were outside, Doctor."
which was like 10 minutes
a few
ago.
moments
at least.
ago, yeah, like. But alas, they get attacked by just a swarm of these vampires, and they burst through the windows and the doors. It's like straight out of a again. These are just acting like zombies. It's like straight out of a George Romero movie, like 100%.
And also, George A. Romero movie, the first Day of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead. I can't remember the fucking title of the first movie he did, but it's set in a graveyard in a church, basically.
Yeah, good film.
It really is, and surprisingly with black police brutality, which is Jesus Christ.
The ending is where it's a good ending. If you've not seen it, spoilers. The main character just gets shot in the head by a cop.
And he's fucking black
he's
as well.
Black. He's one of the first ever black protagonists in a film whose race doesn't play into their character. He just so happens to be black, and nobody ever calls attention to him being black. It's this really cool piece of cinematic history, and it just ends with him getting shot through the head, and it's like, Jesus.
and the movie just holds up perfectly. I watched it for the first time 2018 at the cinema, and it just felt so modern. It's a perfect movie, I would say.
And it's got that classic 60s, I think it was 60s, maybe a little bit earlier, possibly 50s.
1968.
Yeah, 60s horror where there's a random nude shot for no reason. That's something I remember for that film.
And speaking of nudity,
I was about to say, there
Nice
is
segue.
two unfortunate moments with Ace. One avoidable, one not avoidable. Well, one kind of avoidable. It's hard to see when you're not using your eyes.
So the people in the herbivore suits are special effects
Hemorrhoid.
people like Graham Brown and Alan Marshall, who did the special effects as well, and they couldn't see out of the masks, and unfortunately grabbed Sophie Aldridge in a really unfortunate place. Think Tom Baker. Yeah, booby. But it's still not as bad as Tom Baker holding the villain in The Hand of Fear when he could see what he was doing.
He was eager in The Hand of Fear. He was very eager in The Hand of Fear.
Anyway,
sure.
I don't think I noticed this until I watched the commentary, and when it happened, Sylvester McCoy was like, "Oh my goodness." He was just shocked.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking. But it is just unfortunate because everybody's wriggling around. There's like 1,000 hands. One hand's going to end up in an awkward place. It just so happened that it got caught in film.
It happens all the time in movies. The most famous one I can think of is in Ghostbusters, where Sigourney Weaver is on her chair and all the hands are popping out, and one of them just grabs her boob by accident. And that's in the final film as well. Which
it is. Yeah,
insane.
But Ace manages to escape, and she climbs up. She gets up to some tower bit where she throws a ladder down, and we start getting some really cool first-person shots as she's climbing down this ladder. Which, for shooting that with the big old camera, that must have been a nightmare.
It's basically just a stunt woman with a big camera on her head and just looking around while she's climbing down, which is really interesting, which is used all the time in movies and television shows today.
Yeah, because you stick a GoPro.
in the 1980s to stick a big camera on your head. Wow.
Yeah. But it's pretty effective, and it leads to some interesting shots that you've not seen before in Doctor. I don't know if they've done first person shots before this. I've not seen first person shots before or after this in Doctor Who.
Well, I mean, we just saw a first person shot in terms of like the monster chasing.
Well,
the
no,
Russians.
like an action first person shot.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
climbing,
that's
like
fair.
doing something, like moving down. You see first person shots from monsters literally all the time.
Technically, there was that one found footage episode in the Peter Capaldi
Yeah,
era
that's
in
true.
season 9.
The one written by the Inside Number 9 guys,
Yeah.
and it's the worst episode from that series.
It
Yeah.
really was
It's
not good.
such a disappointing episode. I love those guys. I love Inside Number 9. I think there's a new series of that out that I haven't started yet. But
I haven't seen any season, so that's another show I should
very good
watch.
show. It's if Black Mirror was shorter. And less consistently good. Some episodes are real bad. But yeah, a bad episode of Doctor Who. That the sleep one, bad episode.
Yeah. But yeah, there's an unfortunate shot while we're looking up at Ace.
Another unfortunate shot with Ace. She climbs down the ladder, and she gets grabbed by two of the vampires, and she's struggling and kicking her legs, and she's wearing a skirt, and the vampire's hand is just pulled that skirt up a little bit too much, and you just get a big old panty shot, don't you? It's pretty not great.
So apparently the first take was so much where she could actually see so much more, which unfortunately, unlike the DVD commentary, they say somebody on set mentioned, oh yeah, we're going to put that at the Christmas party show reel, which is unfortunate sign of what was going on in the 80s in terms of, you know, attitude toward women.
Objectifying. Yeah.
Which, you know, isn't great.
Yeah. You know, it's a risk you take when you're wearing a skirt and doing action scenes. It's not the biggest of deals. But hey, it just so happens it's two unfortunate scenes for Ace back to back. You know,
Yeah.
not the best time for her during this action scene.
I would say like Ace is probably like one of the first female companions to not be objectified in terms of like the script. You know, of course we're talking about Susan and Vicky because they're obviously like 16, so we don't think about that. But you know. Like, I think it's a good sign that she wasn't, you know, objectified or anything.
Yeah. But she fights off the two vampires, but as quickly gets overpowered as they come up to suck her blood, or they like scratch out the blood. It's a weird one. And then the two Russian soldiers show up, and the vampires let go of Ace and kind of pace around the building. The blocking gets really weird, and then the soldiers just shoot them, and Ace runs away.
There's also a shot where they're holding onto Ace's head, and it kind of lingers on to like 5 seconds too long, and it's like, okay, we're either going to attack her now or not, because they're just standing still, just basically holding her head.
Yeah.
I think there's some good stunts in here, you know. One of the herbivores is actually Tip Tiplin, and he told Sophie to hit him as hard as possible as he was obviously padded. Sadly, Tip Tippin died at 35 in 1993 when a parachute failed to open, which is
that's
yikes.
like a nightmare way to die.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's a bad way to go. Yeah,
you know, 35 as well. It's
No, thank you. No, thank
like,
you.
We've talked about, there's like 3 people who died in this episode. John Nathan Turner, the director, and now Tip Tippin. So young.
Yeah.
Too young.
Yeah, that's a nasty one. That is a nasty one. But we cut back to the Doctor and the Vicar, who are getting overwhelmed by vampires. My question to you is, how did Ace get onto the tower?
Yeah, that's something that's kind of questioned in the audio commentary. It's like so I presume she just walks up steps, but you know we don't actually see her walk up steps.
Yeah, but like, why didn't the Doctor and that follow her out?
They're too busy dealing with the herbivores downstairs.
She was in the same room as them.
I don't know. It's already teleporting around. One thing that was cut here on the roof. One of the the extended cut shows one of the herbivores getting back up from being shot. Like in the actual episode we're watching, we see them get shot down. I mean, in the next shot we see them, they're suddenly back up. But in the extended cut, we've actually see them on the ground getting back up, making more sense as to why we're suddenly back up, you know. Whereas in the TV edit, it feels like there's a continuity error or something. Basically, guns don't kill these dudes. Stakes do.
Yeah.
And in the extended cut, we later on cut back to the Russians, and we see like steaks in a pile of like green goo because we just destroyed them. And there's an ice cream truck right outside again.
It's late today. It's late. It usually shows up about past. It's currently 10:02. It's running. Must be a busy day for ice cream.
Maybe.
I'd hope so. They worked all winter for some reason.
They did. Every day, like 8 o'clock or something. It's insane.
Yeah, they're still going. I can hear them. Wow. Have they stopped yet?
I think so. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. But we cut back to the doctor and the vicar, and they're getting overwhelmed by vampires, and the doctor's like, you've just got to have faith. And then the doctor is like, I suddenly have got faith in something. And all the vampires just flee as this just annoying sound effect plays for a little bit too long.
When you're watching this, you wouldn't understand what the fuck kind of faith the doctor has in, but, he's actually muttering the old name of old companions, Susan, Ian, Barbara, Vicky, and Stephen. That's his faith for his companions. But in the edit, we're like, okay, kids aren't going to understand these references. This was like 26 years ago. Nobody's going to understand this. We're going to cut it out and make a big noise instead, which I don't like.
I think that's a terrible decision. It'd be so much more impactful.
Yeah.
Especially for the second last story ever for the show, for him to start going through all the old companions' names because they give him faith in people. That would have been so, that would have been so good.
And I don't understand why they cut it out, because obviously kids don't have access to like videotapes as much. They aren't going to go out and get an old William Hartnell Dalek story or whatever. But it is necessary for a story, and there's no reason to cut it out. Like last season, season 25, they had a whole story set in Coal Hill School with the Daleks, which was a big celebration of the 25th anniversary. So why not just keep it in?
Yeah, it's a weird choice.
Or change it so he says Ace's name or something instead. More famous companions. He says like Sarah Jane, Ace, Mal. That'd make more sense, but whatever.
So everybody runs into this room and locks the door behind them, and Ace is like, what was that thing that you were doing? Were you singing, Doctor? How did you get rid of the vampires? And he's like, yes, I basically just created a psychic barrier with my faith. Which, again, as you were saying, or as we were saying, would be a lot more impactful if he was singing the names of the companions, and would make a lot more sense because he wasn't singing in the version we watched. Just noise happened.
Yeah, but still, the noise isn't as bad as when the Sea Devils were overtaken by noise, because that made our ears hurt. Yeah,
very true. Everybody's like, okay, we've got to get going, and the Russian captain is like, I'm going to stay behind and fight some of these guys off. I've got to go back to my men. And they're like, you're going to die if you do that. And he's like, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Let's find out. I've got faith in the communist revolution, so I should be good against them, which leads to a very funny scene of vampires being terrified of the hammer and sickle. It's just communism, no!
But there's a really lovely scene where the Russian soldier gives Ace his scarf, which is... So Tomek Bork was the main Russian, and he was disappointed about how little Ace and him got to develop their love storyline. So we worked to improve it. Bork's idea was to put the scarf around Ace to not change dialogue. However, this caused continuity problems trying to remember to put the scarf on in other takes. So
it's a good moment, though. It is a good moment.
It is a really lovely moment. I don't quite buy the romance storyline here, but, it would have been a lot less impactful if this scene didn't happen,
Yeah, I tell you, it's just as well that the Doctor never saw them flirting, because otherwise, that's Ace done. She's staying behind.
Yeah. There's only one man in Ace's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But they are now back underground, and they're by some sealed up wall. Is it the same sealed up wall that the soldiers were sealing up before? That was what I took from it. Yeah.
They're using the same location. It's probably the same wall.
Yeah. And they're struggling to get through it, and Ace is like, move away, boys, I can do it. And the Doctor kind of grumbles to himself. It kind of feels like improv, because Ace is taking a long time to get the stuff out of her bag, and it feels like the Doctor's covering for that.
It's also partly that the Doctor just doesn't like explosives, and he always disapproves of Ace using explosives because it can hurt her.
Mm-hmm. But she sets off 2 bombs and blows a hole through the wall, in which she says is wicked.
Yeah,
which is
she's a very 80s companion for sure.
And the Doctor says, I'll have a talking with you later on. And then we get the vampire scene where they're scared of communism, and we are then joining the Doctor and that through the tunnels for a very long time, as they're walking 300 or 400 meters through these dark tunnels. It is exciting.
But we were talking about off screen about how this is a lot of walking as usual in Doctor Who, but at least here the dialogue is interesting, the acting is interesting, the character work between Sylvester and Sophie is interesting. It's still a captivating scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is where Ace takes the white thing, I forget what the vase thing, out of her bag, and she's like, God, I could make a bomb with this stuff in here. And the Doctor's like, hey, where did you get that? That's the thing we've been looking for this entire time. And Ace has the great response of, oh. It's that pretty convenient thing that she just stumbled upon it and never said, and now the Doctor's got it.
Which, to be fair on her, she probably just forgot all about it until that moment. She was too busy fighting off zombie vampires.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't been there? During this, as they're walking through, we're cutting back and forth between vampires walking and the Russian soldier walking. It's the middle part of episode 3. People are gotta be walking places. The Russian soldier makes it back towards his men, and they're standing on the beach, and they're like, it's a really nice day today, isn't it? Yeah.
which again contradicts what we've seen earlier on. It was raining. Later on, Ace talks about how cold it is.
And it starts raining again later on, I'm pretty sure, as well. Very inconsistent weather.
So I'll just say this just quickly now. Dialogue later on changes because of the weather. This feels like it could have changed because of the weather. It would make more sense if it was cut out, to be honest.
Yeah. Also, they could have easily changed the error that happens when the Doctor's like, it's not raining and the wind's blowing westerly. He could just say, but the wind's blowing westerly, rather than, because it has to be it's raining and the wind's blowing. He could just be like, but the wind's going the other direction.
Also, it's a weird bit of dialogue in the first place. Because who thinks, the wind's blowing east today, so there's going to be a flood later.
I guess people in the 1940s, there's nothing better to do. But the Doctor and everybody, except for 2 Russian soldiers who hang back to fight off some vampires, make it out the end of the tunnel, and the evil general man is like, cool, steal up that gate. And the Doctor's like, but there's men left behind there. And he's like, I simply do not care.
Also, because I'm the king of useless trivia, if you see there's a little box in front of the camera, that's actually a digital effect. That's not actually there on set.
I can tell it's digital now that I look at it, yes.
You know why it's there?
Why?
Everyone is wearing wellies because of the mud.
You can kind of see on Ace's legs there, just below the skirt, the tip of the welly. Yeah.
I think in another episode, a few episodes ago, we saw the priest wear wellies as well, but I forgot to point it out because I didn't notice it when we were filming. But as we said, it was raining constantly on this location, and we had to wear wellies because the rain creates mud,
and that plays into the end of the next episode when the Doctor falls on his face and gets covered in mud. But that's interesting. Yeah.
It reminds me of the rock in A New Hope that covers R2-D2 in the cave. That was digitally altered in 1997.
Mm-hmm. But the general has this really interesting. I say interesting. It's a very dark story about many years ago at war. Locking a bunch of people in this thing, and just they were screaming and shouting for hours until they just stopped. And it's like, Jesus.
They've cut a loss in this story in terms of censorship because it's too dark and grim, and this still has some really dark material.
Mm-hmm. And also, it like after that scene and everybody walks away, the priest is left there standing, and it just sounds like he swears.
Let me go back to that. Yeah, it sounds like he's saying this shit.
Yeah. What an edgy episode this is. Yeah, it's got everything you want.
I presume Mary Whitehouse heard that and was like, "Oh, they swore on Doctor Who."
I don't know who that is.
Oh, she's famous for just complaining about every TV show for being too political and just sexual, and yeah.
She would have hated this episode. It's got groping, upskirts, violence, and swearing now.
Yeah, there's a good documentary about her on BBC iPlayer at the moment. Worth a watch. It's like 2 parts. You probably won't watch, but it's interesting.
Whoa, just pause for a sec. I've just made a connection. Thinking about back to that Viking names of the companions,
Yes.
Whatever ones they were, Sarah, Martha, Jane,
Clara, Annie.
yeah. The important one to focus on there is Martha, because also in this episode, the nurse is played by evil vampire old lady from the very first episode Martha appears in.
Yeah.
There's a connection. There's a connection there. That's a string I didn't connect before, and it's gotta be named after this episode then, surely. Because they would have brought that old lady back, being like, this is a little deep dive for the Doctor Who fans, and naming that companion Martha as well. Ooh.
Yeah, it would be very random. No, it feels very.
It'd be too much of a coincidence.
It feels like a coincidence. We probably
I don't know.
settled on the name Martha before we cast the old lady.
Maybe it is just a massive coincidence, but it's
Yeah.
it's just interesting to see that connection. Yeah.
I mean, they're also common names in terms of like women.
Martha? Is Martha?
Yeah.
I've never met a Martha in my life.
Neither have I.
Or
but I know
Clara. I've met a Sarah. I don't know if I've met a Jane. And an Annie. I've met Anne. Not so much an Annie.
Again, they probably were more common in the 1940s where the story was set.
Maybe. But still, there's a conspiracy forming here. I can feel it in my bones. But we cut to the Russian soldiers, and they're cutting a hole in a fence, and the captain walks through, and he's like, all right, boys, stay here. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, just go home, because I'll be dead. And he starts shouting out for the general, for Commander Millington, to show up, and he's like, let's talk officer to officer, be honorable men. We then cut to Millington with the professor, and he's like, hey, I got the evil white jug, and put it in our machine. And it's very clear that the professor is not sure what he's supposed to do with this, because he just kind of jams it in behind he doesn't open it, he just sticks it in behind the machine. And I'm like, I didn't think that's really what you were supposed to do with that jug. The whole time you're just supposed to stick it in the back.
It just screams that the big actor thought, oh yeah, I'm not on screen for this part where I'm putting it in the machine, so I'll just do whatever. I'm not told any stage directions.
Yeah,
here.
I'll just get rid of it. You're saying to stick it in the machine. Sure, whatever. It doesn't make any sense. And then this is where Millington gets told that the Russian is outside waiting for him, and he's like, "There's a guy outside waiting for me," and he's like, "Yeah, he wants to chat." And so he
maybe have a little kiss.
Maybe a little smooch, a little smooch. And they go outside, and there's this really interesting discussion where the Russian soldier keeps getting guns pointed at him from every direction, and he's like, I have no men with me. I'm here just to talk, if that's something that you want to do. Which it's not really something that Millington really seems like he wants to be doing, is it?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? I assume he gets taken prisoner or something, because then the next scene is we cut. Soldiers are chasing away the Russians. Then we cut again, and Millington's with the doctor. So
yeah, it's one of those things that feels definitely underdeveloped, because the plot just moves forward from this point on. The whole plot with Fenric, it feels like the Russians are an afterthought after this part.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
But the doctor is suddenly with Millington, and he's, trying to tell him how much he should be worried about these vampires. And he goes, "They can weld metal beneath the sea with their bare hands," which I thought was just a cool line.
and it also sounds like something the Sea Devils could do. It feels like an episode that's kind of catered towards the Sea Devils. It's kind of weird.
I think you could insert the Sea Devils here and have the same story.
Yeah, do the Sea Devils know anything about the herbivores? Like, it feels like something they would know, like two underwater creatures.
Yeah, I think though, like, you could get rid of the herbivores and put the Sea Devils in and lose nothing. Like, what would you lose?
But at the same time, this would be another episode where the Sea Devils are underused. Like, they're constantly being underused in Doctor Who between their 3 stories.
Yeah, true. But, the vampires are underused as well, so...
Yeah.
We then cut to a very good scene with Ace and Ace's grandmother. Shh, don't tell anybody that yet. Where she's holding a note and she's looking very upset, and Ace is like, "What's wrong? And immediately I went, "Baby's dead." I was like, "The baby's dead." Oh, that was so dramatic for Scott. He left. He couldn't deal with that, and he just left the call. Oh my goodness! Let's see if we can get him back. There we go. And he's coming back in.
Discord just decided to go.
The baby dying Scott was so dark. Your Discord couldn't deal with it. It couldn't handle being gone for that long. Couldn't handle that information.
Yeah, I just decided to force close.
Yeah, your camera is off at the moment.
Yeah, give me a second. Okay,
there we go. He's back. Hang on, give it a minute to catch up because you're lagging out. There we go. We're back. We get a very good scene with, the grandmother and Ace here, where she's holding this note, and it's telling her that her husband died, and it's going into a lot of detail about how he died, which I didn't know was something the notes did. Because it's like he got fired on by torpedoes and trapped in a room with fire, and he is now presumed missing and assumed dead. And I'm like, you could just say, the boat got attacked and he's missing.
Yeah, that does feel like a lot of detail, and it's again, it adds to a really dark script,
Yeah.
And also, I do love the fact that Ace is like, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to read this really sad letter out loud and just bring back the trauma that she's experiencing, make it even worse for her."
Yeah. But it does lead to this just really good performance from this lady whose name I don't know, sadly, where she is just crying, and it's really realistic crying, where something you don't ever really see in classic Doctor Who, of a character genuinely being like sad. I think
and it's acting based off of something that could happen in real life, and it feels so realistic and raw and authentic. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think classic Who does a really good job with characters being angry at each other, and giving passionate speeches and arguments, or even characters being understated, and talking calmly. But what they're saying is extremely serious. It doesn't really do sadness. I've never really seen an episode of Doctor Who that deals with, we've seen episodes that deal with grief, but not episodes that deal with raw grief, like immediate aftermath of finding out that information. And I think that this performance handles it so well.
Yeah, and this goes back to Ian Briggs wanting some really good character moments, and I say he delivered 100%. This is a really great moment, and just it wouldn't be as impactful without this brilliant actress in the role. Like, yeah, it's really solid work.
It is very, very good, and it bleeds right into another good scene right after it. We cut briefly to the professor and the machines going, "I'm a machine," and we cut away again. It's just that scene is just there so that there can be a gap between Ace scenes, because it's 2 Ace scenes back to back where she's in a different location. But now the Ace is back with the Doctor, and she is furious with the Doctor. I don't know why she's furious with the Doctor, but she is. It's not really important. I guess it's just everything's finally caught up with her. She's seeing this upset lady. The vampires are attacking. It's just all these things have clumped onto her head at once. And she starts shouting at the Doctor, like, this is just a game for you, and you know the rules and none of us do. Remember that's coming back later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
and she keeps on shouting how he never bothers to explain anything, and he's just going off doing his own thing, blah, blah, blah. And the Doctor gives this amazing speech about, since the beginning of time, before time, there was just evil and good, and they've been fighting forever, and then time happened, and matter happened, and the universe exploded, but somehow evil survived, and it's still there, and no matter what he's doing, he's always fighting this form of evil in many different shapes, and it is just an incredible speech from Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah, both actors are giving such a great performance here, and we go back to me saying Ace is basically the modern template of a modern companion, and this scene is basically replicated throughout Flux. We had Yaz questioning the Doctor about not telling her enough information, but I think this is much more handled. I think this is better handled here than in Flux, because they really give time to develop it.
Yeah, and it makes coherent sense for the most part. We've only seen Flux once, and we are. I don't know if we're planning on revisiting it anytime soon. I don't remember our schedule. No. But eventually, I assume we will want to revisit Flux, or we'll do it in our own time, and maybe we'll have a different opinion. Maybe cooler heads will prevail, and we'll be able to take something away from it. Right now, it's not good, is it? But this scene is extremely good and plays into what I was saying earlier with Doctor Who. They do shouting scenes very well.
Yeah. And I just love the dark twist to Sylvester McCoy's Doctor. It's like, he's a hero at the end of the day, but he does really questionable things throughout this story.
Especially in the next episode. That's the darkest I've seen his Doctor go, and it was amazing. It was so good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the scene ends with Ace telling the Doctor that she's going to distract the guards, and the Doctor's like, how are you going to distract the guard? And Ace just goes, I'm not a little girl, Doctor. And the Doctor just has this look on his face of, which, is playing into Ace's burgeoning sexuality and becoming an independent woman sort of deal, and also plays into the Doctor's naivety, or naivete, if you want to be a pronunciation expert, where, he still, even to this day, doesn't see people as sexual objects. It's most prevalent with Capaldi and Matt Smith, but that blind spot for the Doctor is still super present, where he doesn't view other people as thinking active adults, because he's infinitely old. In his eyes, these people are still children, and Ace is still this young girl.
And it also plays into the fatherly role that the Doctor plays in Ace's life. Ace doesn't really have parents. Her mother is kind of around, but she really hates her mother, which is coming into next episode. Just the Doctor realizing that basically his daughter is a grown woman now and might start to think about leaving him, which is really interesting, which plays into next story.
Yeah, it's just this very nice little note at the end of their argument. So Ace goes off to go flirt with a guard, and let's just break down her entire flirting scene for the moment, because it is possibly the most erotic scene in Doctor Who I think I've ever seen in my life. It is pure, just, hot under the collar. Whew, I can't believe they got away with that at 7:00 on a Wednesday. You're joking. Whew. No, in all seriousness, it is confusing and makes no sense.
Basically Ace spends the entire scene acting like she's just possessed.
She's if you want to talk to me, you're going to have to be faster. I'm faster than light. And the guy's like, faster than the second hands on a clock. And she's
and he's like, faster than the Doctor in that one episode of Doctor Who
Flux,
where she moves at super speed.
Yeah, and then she starts having visions, and she starts like seeing the vampires under the water. We get like clips that we've seen before of the like blue hand against the like wood and stuff like that, and she's like, oh no, I can't stay here, I have to go. And the guy's like, you promised you'd stay. And she never once promised us. She just flirted with you a bit, left, and then started talking about how she's faster, how she's like Sonic, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to distract someone by flirting with them, it leaves them more confused than anything, It's really bizarre.
I mean, it distracted him. It did distract him. It worked in that sense, but
yeah, basically her lines are like, oh, it's so cold today, the wind is blowing
through my clothes. Yeah, I can feel it through my clothes. Is there a storm coming? I can move faster than speed.
So earlier we were speaking about how some lines had to be changed because of the weather. This weather changed significantly for the script. In the script, it was supposed to be a hot day, and her original lines were, "It's too hot. My clothes are sticking to me. Is it this hot everywhere?" Okay. And he would reply with, "It wasn't until now."
That's more on the nose flirting. I get that one. That's more on the whole conversation they have doesn't make sense.
But when they filmed it, they were like, it's fucking windy, and also the floorboards are creaking everywhere. We need to change the script.
Yeah, but while this is happening, the Doctor sneaks in and frees the Russian captain that got arrested off screen and locked into, I guess this is a prison cell they knew about and never told anybody that they had. Don't worry about it. But they rescue him and run out, and we cut to the priest who is trying to hold off the vampires, and he's like, stay back, I've got faith in this Bible. And they're like, no you don't. And he's like, yeah I do. And they're like, oh my god, maybe you do. And then they go, wait, no you don't. And he's like, yeah, you're right, I don't. And they kill him. I guess they just had nothing else for this character. Like,
I do like this. Basically, he's like, oh yeah, I have faith that there's good in everyone, and they're like, yeah, but we're clearly pure evil. We don't have faith in us because we're not good, which is really good. I think it's a really good scene in hindsight, I would say, because it's the idea of how could you believe in an all-loving God if he creates like evil everywhere?
Yeah. That guy really should believe in the power of communism, because that was proven to be very useful against the vampires.
But it's sad to see another person die. I think the priest was the best character in this episode.
There is a lot of death. I kind of like Ace's grandma. She's good.
Yeah, she's good as well. She's great.
But yeah, there's a lot of death in this episode because of course it is Classic Who, and you can't have Classic Who with just copious amounts of murder at every turn. But we then cut to, I think we then cut to the computer machine working on with the professor, and, it zaps him. It goes zap, and he's like, oh no, I've been zapped. And he falls off his chair, and then a thunderstorm rolls in, and all the vampires start coming out, and it's getting very dreary and almost horror-esque as the rain comes pouring down, and the doctor and that come into the room, and they're like, oh my god, the professor's been, killed or whatever. And then Millington starts going on this like weird little ranting rave where he's like, the gods have lost their battle, it's Fenric's coming back. It's kind of haunting, the speech that he's giving.
And Ace is like, oh my god, it's him, he's Fenric. When we get a really great interesting twist.
Yes, where the professor stands up, eyes glowing, and he says, what is the exact line? Because the exact line is amazing. Hang on.
We play the contest again, Time Lord.
Yes, we play the contest again, Time Lord. And then cut to the credits. It is a very good cliffhanger.
It's a very good cliffhanger, but if you watch the scene, it looks very grainy, and there's a good reason for that. So basically, the guy's wearing contact lenses, and somebody's off camera just trying to shine a light into his eyes to make it glow.
That must have sucked.
Yeah, the contact lenses was very uncomfortable for him. Later on in the next episode, his eyes are actually bloodshot, but that's not the point. The lights are very low in this scene, and in the post-processing, we're like, oh my god, this is too dark, we need to brighten the scene up, and of course it's 1980s. Of course that causes a lot of grain, and the effect as a result, the glowing eyes doesn't look that good. But on the 2003 DVD, we went back, made the scene look a lot better, and made the glowing eyes look a lot better, which is good special effects for like a re-release.
Yeah. And it's a solid end to this episode where the twist isn't the Doctor's got a gun pointed at him. It's this I say arch enemy. He's never spoken about him before. It's this evil enemy. Evil incarnate has come to kill the Doctor, which I feel like he does
also,
every week. But
it's also what I like about these Sylvester McCoy in Classic Who. Like, there's a lot of times where he's mysterious because we don't know what he's up to. Like, we've never met this villain before, but he's an arch enemy. We've never spoken of him before, and it feels like something Chris Chibnall tried to do in Flux when we brought in
Swarm.
Yeah, Swarm.
Yes. Yeah.
And it feels like this is a direct comparison. Like, but I feel like this is more interesting.
I tell you, they both have just as underwhelming endings.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Where Swarm just kind of dies. And where this guy just kind of dies.
But this adds into the whole Sylvester McCoy arc. Like, he's not an ordinary Time Lord. Like, we're hinting at a more secretive past for the Doctor.
The Timeless Child.
Yeah, the Timeless Child is a whole other story. This one's more obscure and not as developed, which is more interesting. I like more mysterious past for the Doctor.
I like mysterious past Doctor rather than we've met the Doctor's mum and they're god and also they're dead now and they had a pet Ood and don't worry about it. Also, here's Swarm. By the way, time's a person and a planet. Yeah.
Yeah. This episode gets incomprehensible at points, but it doesn't quite go as bad.
Episode 4 gets pretty incomprehensible. I'm looking and we're going to jump straight into there, yeah.
Yeah, but this episode overall was very good. It's action-packed. It breaks the curse of a lot of Doctor Who stories where part 3 is usually a boring episode.
It almost falls into it. They do fall into the let's walk for a while bit, but they do manage to not make it go on for too long, keep it interesting, and keep the action quick. And
we
have good performances.
Yeah, some really interesting character work as well, which is rare in classic Doctor Who.
I think it's maybe my favorite episode out of the story. I think it's the most fast-paced and the easiest one to watch out of all 4 of them. With the next one, I think, being my least favorite.
That's fair, but we'll get to that in a few seconds.
We shall indeed. Let's us jump into episode 4. Woohoo!
You think I didn't know? The chess set in Lady Painful's study? I knew.
Earlier than that, Time Lord. Before Cyberman. Ever since Iceworld, where you first met the girl.
I knew she carried the evil inside her. I think I'd have chosen a social misfit if I hadn't known. She couldn't even pass her chemistry exams at school, and yet she manages to create a time storm in her bedroom. I saw your hand in it from the very beginning. She's an emotional cripple. I wouldn't waste my time on her unless I had to use her somehow.
No! Kill them.
So one thing I should say before we start episode 4 is that when he was writing this, Ian Briggs was suddenly told, you know how we told you we were going to start filming this in May? We've decided to start filming it in April, so we've got less time to work on it now. So I think that explains why this episode feels somewhat rushed. He just didn't have enough time to complete it properly.
It's a recurring theme with Doctor Who, isn't it? Having even to this day, suddenly having no time to make it and being told you have to make it now. It seems to be the curse of Doctor Who. This is the curse of Fenric. But
I've said it before, but the funny thing about a time travel TV show is they have no time to make the time travel TV show.
If only they could time travel. It's that joke from Community, isn't it? If only this desk was a time desk, or a time hoodie or whatever it was. If only this hoodie was a time hoodie, could go back and solve his problem. Great show, Community.
I haven't seen it in so long.
I recently rewatched it all a few months ago. Very good show.
I think I stopped about 4 episodes into season 4, and I just never returned to it.
I hate everything about you.
It was a gas leak year. It's shit.
Yeah, it's okay. It's
okay.
It's definitely the worst season, but it's okay. But in the next season, Scott, the very next season, Mike shows up.
Oh yeah, from Breaking Bad. I know he's in it.
And he draws ducks. A duck called Bill.
From Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Nice.
But this episode begins strangely not where we left the last episode, but kind of like a few seconds before we left a few seconds before we left the last episode. We're not picking up right at the cliffhanger. We're basically watching the build up to the cliffhanger again.
I mean, we often get mini recaps in classic Who.
Sometimes, most of the time though, it's just picks up like, oh, I'm about to be shot, and now I'm not. Whereas this one, just like the extra 30 seconds to me felt like it was just because they needed to have 30 extra seconds in the runtime.
Well, you'd be surprised. About 5 minutes of this episode in particular was cut, and then it's on the extended edition, which is wild.
Then cut the 30 seconds off the start. You don't need it. We don't need that recap. We can just have Glowy Eyes McGee come back.
The thing about the recap is somebody might have missed last week's episode. We didn't realize
that is on them, Scott. That is on
them.
We
might have. But, a Coronation Street character might have been in the hospital or
That's
something.
On
we
them.
needed to watch it.
That's on them. It is appointment viewing. If you missed Doctor Who on Wednesday at 7 o'clock or whenever it was on, tough. Why should the rest of the audience have to waste 30 precious seconds of their life?
But, imagine being a kid watching Doctor Who and suddenly 1 week your mum wants the television because it's like, oh yeah, Phyllis and Jean are getting married this week in Coronation Street. We need to... I said Phyllis and Jean because we're in this episode of Doctor Who. I don't think we'd be progressive enough to have gay marriage storylines in Coronation Street.
Phyllis can be a female name and Jean can be a male name.
I guess, yeah.
So.
But yeah, it would suck to not be able to watch Doctor Who, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it would. But screw them for missing it. But we get the recap. Guy comes back and he's got glowy eyes and he's all, oh, we will fight time, Lord. And then we cut to the definitely not Ace's grandmother holding a very sick-looking baby. The baby is like a ghost. Like, its skin is so white.
Yeah, that baby is very pale in this image.
My guess is it's just because like they couldn't put makeup on the baby.
Possibly, yeah.
And so maybe it's just all the lights on it and the old-timey camera and stuff. It just looks ill when it's not.
And also the baby is looking at the boom mic the entire time.
Well, at least he's not looking at the camera. It's better than the camera, the boom mic.
Yeah.
But there's like a big storm rolling in, if you remember from last episode. And the mother is sitting there singing the lullaby about a baby falling from a tree. What a weird lullaby that is.
It really is, yes.
Then, is this guy Fenric? He is Fenric, isn't he?
Yes, he is Fenric,
yeah.
yes.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to be misnaming him. Fenric basically says, my evil plan is ready, mwahaha, and then he explodes.
Yeah, he pretty much does. Yeah.
I couldn't describe the effect more than he like stretches his arms out and then it just goes poof, and like it vanishes. Like he just simply explodes out of the scene.
Yeah, there is a nice actual practical effect of like the window blowing open and all that, and it's actually real. The guy is standing there as the window's blowing open, which could be dangerous, but because he's facing away from the explosion, it's fine. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's this weird video composite effect over him, which really looks weird and outdated.
It
but,
does. It's so strange.
1980s Doctor Who, and suddenly he disappears, but he doesn't disappear on camera. He disappears off camera. So you're just left wondering what was going on.
He just It just makes it seem like he just exploded.
Yeah.
He just ceased existing in this universe. My plan is over, Doctor. Dead. But meanwhile, the other soldiers come running in, and the evil general guy whose name has left my brain on this Saturday evening goes
Millington.
Yeah. He goes, shoot the Doctor and Ace, and the soldier goes, why? And he goes, well, one, I ordered you to, and the other one is they're traitors. And the guy's like, oh my god, yeah, okay, I'll kill them right now. And instead of just shooting them on the spot, which I feel like was the order, I feel like the order was shoot them now. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't, okay, let's arrest them and then line them up to be executed later on. No, it was shoot these guys right now.
Yeah, but, you know, they have to be shot later on so we can actually get a moment to escape.
Yeah. Which we get immediately. This episode is go, 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 and we are standing outside in the rain, which you said was not real rain.
Yeah, you can probably tell in some shots it's actually fake rain, because there's only like one side of the screen getting rained on.
It's also very
In
bright.
some shots. Yes,
It
it's also
is.
very bright, which the extended edition on the Blu-ray kind of makes better because they darken the image a little bit. That's why you should buy a Blu-ray. And also this episode makes more sense because they cut out 5 minutes.
Yeah, but it is raining and they are about to be shot. This is an execution about a minute into a Doctor Who episode. You know, it's brilliant. And basically we get like one-liners from the 3 people that are going to get shot. It's the Russian guy, the Doctor, and Ace. The Russian guy is like, you know, killing us isn't going to change anything. I don't remember what the Doctor says.
I don't think he says anything, but
He's just
Ace
standing
calls
there.
out for her mom. She's
Yeah,
like,
he's
"Mom,
just
I'm
standing there
sorry."
sternly. Yeah, she's all like, "Mom, I'm sorry," and you know, somebody throws a grenade, gunfire, explosions, whatever. Just before this scene, actually, because it's so brief, I forgot about it. We see the 2 vampire girls walking through the sewers towards Fenric, and Fenric goes, I was expecting only one of you, which is a line that I didn't understand the purpose of, and maybe I've forgotten that it comes back, but why does it matter if there's 1 or 2?
Yeah, so there's a lot cut in this instance of this scene. It kind of cuts back and forth. There's like a whole bit. Fenric then says, "I was hoping for something a bit more Aryan. However, let the Ancient One approach
okay.
me." There's no response from the girls. And then Fenric is like, "Where is the Ancient One?" Phyllis replies with, "He waits." Fenric replies with, "He waits. What for? Has he no sense of occasion? I want him here now. Fetch me the Ancient One."
Okay.
And then the herbivores approach the 2 soldiers. They shoot at them. Their bullets do nothing. The girls smile, and we cut to Fenric smiling as the soldiers scream. We go back to the herbivores who have drained the blood from the soldiers. Fenric says, "How English! Everything stops for tea. Now fetch the Ancient One," which is where the next scene we see the Fenric. That's where the next scene starts, which is we cut a whole bit here.
Okay, so most of that I can understand why they cut it, because it's, you know, just repetition or fighting. But the whole, you know, I thought you'd be more Aryan. That's a really good line and makes me hate this guy as more of a villain, because right now I don't like him because I'm told I don't like him.
Yeah.
And also fetching of the Ancient One lets me know who Cthulhu is that shows up randomly, because I had no idea who that dude was.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, he has a couple of great lines that were just cut from this episode, and I'll read them later, obviously.
interesting.
Oh, and also the two of the monsters behind the 2 girls are actually Sylvester McCoy's children. They visited them on set and were like, "Hey, can we dress up as monsters?" And they were like, "Yeah, let's dress you up."
Oh, okay, nice. But the fighting continues, and we then cut back to General Middlington, Middlesbrough. And he's basically reciting a poem or an excerpt from some story, basically being like, you know, everybody's gonna die in a big battle, and it's very dramatically shot. I quite like how it's shot.
Yeah, it's well lit as well. It's just moody and dramatic.
Yeah. We then cut to the Doctor and Ace, who are sitting on a hill with an umbrella up, kind of just ignoring the fact that there's an entire battle going on around them. They seem pretty unfazed at that point at the moment.
There's also another cut line here where the Doctor asks Ace, "What was it you said?" Ace replies with, "When?" The Doctor replies with, "Outside, you shouted something." Ace replies with, "Oh, nothing, just something." Doctor replies with, "Your mum." Ace replies with, "Look, stop playing games with me."
The Doctor replies with, "Your mum."
And then the Doctor replies with, "We've all been playing games. Fenric's games, playing his games and walking into his traps," which is a nice little foreshadowing to what's actually going to happen with in regards to her mum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But instead we don't get any of that, and they're just sitting down, and the Doctor's like, "I really need to play chess. More than anything right now, we need to be playing chess." Which I think covers basically the same thing you covered.
Yeah.
We cut back to the vampire ladies. And did they say any?
Yeah, they just sort of stand there and nod.
They stand there, nods after they get told to go get Big Blue Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we cut to more fighting briefly before the Russian captain pulls over to where the doctor is, and he's like, "Oh, I can steal you a chess set." His actual line is really great. It's "We came to steal the Ultima Machine chess set. No problem. Follow me," which is a very good line of dialogue. My question here, Scott,
Yes.
is that soldier we saw did such an effective job of destroying the radios. Did he forget to also destroy the chess sets? Because he was told to destroy the chess sets, and yet they get a chess set almost no bother.
There's ice cream behind me. I
Right
can't
on
remember.
Cue. Right on cue.
I can't remember when he was told to do this chess set. He probably got distracted
At the same
by
time,
the monsters.
he was told at the same time. Yeah, it was destroy all the radios and also destroy all the chess sets. And he goes, "The chess sets?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's an order."
Okay, well, he was doing the radios when suddenly he was told to fix the radios. Remember? The doctor was like, "Fix the radios."
Why is he taking orders from the doctor? That read more as a joke to me. But yeah, no. He just totally forgot to destroy the chess sets. Or the writers forgot that they said to destroy the chess sets.
Nah, I just reckon he was really confused by the old man that just walked in and told him to stop to fix the radios. Because it's like, okay, what's going on here? I don't understand.
Yeah, and
I mean, he just forgot about chess sets. This happens, dude.
I don't think it does. There's a really strange edit here, and I think it's just because the cut comes like a second too late. But we watch the Dr. Ace and the Russian guy run up to the corner of this building. Then they stop, and then we cut to a close-up of them standing at the building. Like it felt like we were going to cut to a different scene, but instead we cut and we're still at this scene. With the characters, it's just a strange little, the only piece of editing I think, considering they chopped 5 minutes out, of this episode. This is the only edit that made me go, "Oh, that's weird."
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of editing in this story in general. It's just like they focus on a scene for like 2 seconds too long. We need to cut it, trim it down a little bit more.
Yeah. We'll give them that note, and then they can go back and fix it before this comes out and it actually airs, and that'll save a lot of problems. We then cut to the vampire girls who are like, "Ooh, rise from the ocean," and they rise a big blue boy. And my question for you about this big blue boy, Scott, is what do you think about Big Blue Boy's costume?
He kind of looks a bit silly, but you know, it's Doctor Who. I guess we have to look a bit silly. Again, it goes back to the other herbivores. We just need to be darker in color, I would reckon, because it's a bit too light blue at the moment. A
bit too artificial looking.
Yeah.
But I think it is maybe one of the best classic Who costumes I've seen. Like, it looks put together.
Yeah, it's a really solid design for a budget, and also, surprise, surprise, the actor started drowning on the first take.
Yeah. That's how you know you've got a good costume, when it traps water in. That means it's not going to fall apart because there's no holes. So the next scene we get is like half monologue, half not really monologue because he gets interrupted halfway through with Fenric, as it's a pretty dark monologue. Like some of the lines of dialogue he has, you know, it's really glorifying death and murder and stuff like that. It's pretty gruesome.
It's also delivered really, really well.
Yeah, it's a fun one. We also get some exposition here from exactly who Fenric is. Mm-hmm. You know, where it's like, you know, "Oh, I battled with the Doctor before, and we did all these puzzles and stuff like that, and then he trapped me, but this time I will get my revenge." You know, it's classic villain sort of stuff. I feel like it would have more impact if this was an actual villain we had seen before, rather than somebody we had never seen and just getting told that they've had this history.
As part of the Doctor Who mystery, you know, the fact that the Doctor has adventures off screen and we just don't know the character 100%. It adds so much more to the mysteriousness of his character. Yeah.
Maybe it's just not. It just doesn't hit for me. This for whatever reason. This motivation. Fenric's just kind of a bleh villain.
Yeah. But yeah, there's another bit here cut as Militant walks into the room and Fenric asks him, "Where's the Time Lord?" Militant replies with, "Time Lord? The one you call the Doctor." Militant replies with, "I had him shot." And Fenric says, "I can see you've never been handicapped by great intelligence," which is another really solid line, which I wish was in this version.
Yeah, that is a good line. Good insult. Then the Doctor and Ace find a chess set that's not been destroyed, which contradicts something that the Doctor says in literally a few moments. But they find a chess set. Ace immediately is like, "Oh, a chess set, I'll go get that." And the Doctor, sensing a trap, he goes, "No, Ace, wait, stop." And it sets off somehow a gas grenade. I don't understand how it set it off, but it did. They just kind of put a lid on top of the gas, and Ace is like, "Oh, thank goodness! If I was the bad guy, I would have just stuck a regular bomb." And then they look under the table, and lo and behold, there's a regular bomb. Cut to the outside, big explosion, whatever. You know, it's a fun kind of cheesy comedy bit. It doesn't make any sense. Why not stick the explosive bomb on the first trap, and then you just blow them up immediately? Problem solved.
Yeah, but the gas bomb in case they figure out the gas. And when the explosion bomb, in case they don't figure out the explosion.
Just explode them. Exploding them solves the first problem and the second problem because they're exploded.
It's a bit of fun, and also Sylvester and Sophie did their own stunt here, which is really awesome.
Yeah, and the umbrella goes flying, and a piece of rubble hits the camera lens.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, a real 3D moment. We then get a meeting between Fenric and the big blue boy, known as the Serpent, but I'm going to keep calling him the big blue boy.
I call him Mr. Blobby, but I would say this is a bit where Fenric probably teleports. People teleport all the time in this story, but actually Fenric is a teleporter, so it makes sense why he's suddenly down here again.
Exactly. He just exploded again, and now he's down here. But this is also where we get a much better look at the Big Blue Boy costume, and I noticed this watching it again. There's little details, like you can see it expanding as he's breathing, like there's little lungs on the side, and you mentioned that the eyes actually blink. And it's extremely cool. The only thing that you start to notice is he's not talking yet. I don't remember if he talks at all, but so far he's not really talking, and he's just standing around.
He literally says a line in this scene.
I don't think he does.
He says, "My world is dead."
Oh yeah, so he does. You know what it is? It's his mouth doesn't move. It looks
slightly.
like it tries to move.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. And so when I was watching it, I just assumed Fenric said that. I did not assume it was Big Blue Boy saying it, because I could not tell that he was trying to talk. It just looked like he was breathing some more.
I mean, he does have a different voice, so...
Yeah, but like it's so modulated, and the audio's been so bad in this episode. Why would I expect it to be any different?
But yeah, it is a great costume. My problem is it's in this moody, atmospheric, dark place, and it just sticks out like a sore thumb. It's just blue. Just blue. Yeah, it's just bright blue.
Yeah. He's wearing an interesting jumper. His arms look well protected, but his chest, not really. It's an interesting costume. But they start talking more about the history, and do they explain how Big Blue Boy is here? Because the sea vampires and Big Blue Boy are humans from the future.
Yeah, that's why you have to watch the extended cut. There's deleted lines later on I'll cover when that's relevant.
Okay. I'm going to guess it's something to do with flux.
You'd be surprisingly wrong.
But we then come back to the Doctor and Ace as they're sitting rubbing explosions off themselves, or not explosion, like dust and stuff. And there's some fun comedy stuff where they're each wiping each other's faces and whatever. And they're talking about another trap. And Ace is like, "Oh, we should go back to the lady because she had a chess set." And the Doctor goes, No. Remember, all the chess sets got ordered to be destroyed. So why did you think that you could find a chess set, Doctor? Just a moment ago, you were like, "Let's find a chess set," and then you find one immediately. Why now were they all destroyed? Why do you suddenly think this now?
I presume it's because it's Militant's chess set, and he didn't want his chess set to be destroyed because of the games of Fenric.
But why would the Doctor know that Millicent kept his own chess set and didn't destroy the other ones?
Because he knows how Militant thinks.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
But yeah, also Sylvester and Sophie are wiping each other just for continuity, because all of a sudden in the next scene they're completely clean. So that's what. So it was a bit of improv on their part.
I did that, or we did something similar to that in Messy Story, which is a web series that I make on youtube.com/MessyYouTube. In episode 2 of A Messy Story, we had this problem where our faces were covered in blood, and we forgot about that, and we never wrote a scene where we clean our faces. So presumably the rest of the series, our face would be covered in blood. And so we had to improvise, like, okay, no. So I get up and I leave the room and I take Sean with me and I just muttered to myself, let's go get our faces clean. And then when I came back in the room, we had to, Ewan's still there. And we had this problem of, he's got blood on his face still. How are we getting rid of this? Of course. I just throw a cloth at his face. And the blood gets vanished. Thinking about the continuity when it comes to, like, dust, debris, blood damage, and stuff like that is an easy thing to forget about, and it becomes a problem very quickly.
Yeah. Especially when you're in the script writing process and you don't imagine how it's going to look on screen.
You almost never are imagining somebody's face unless you're specifically writing about their face.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an understandable problem and a creative solution.
And it's also a bit of fun as well. It just adds a bit more levity into that scene.
And it gives them something to do rather than just sit with their arms at their side talking.
Yeah.
We then get to witness a war crime, where we're seeing soldiers load poisonous gas into the grenades and lob it at the soldiers they're fighting with. The gas explodes, everybody chokes, and we then see their, like, burnt up corpse where their skin is like all warped and ruined looking, and one of the guys is obviously breathing. But yeah, it's really gruesome. It's Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who especially, just randomly gets really gruesome at times.
It really does. And this we've talked about it before about how this episode was censored in terms of, like, gay themes, but yet violence is okay. So just remember that, kids. Violence is okay, but it's not okay to be gay.
That's always been the rules, Scott. Violence is okay. Showing affection is not. Murder is cool and swearing is cool, but only some swear words. And you can murder whoever you like, but if there's blood, that's not okay.
Yeah, you have to make sure the blood is either black or green, not red.
Yeah, or have no blood at all, but like just chop people to bits. That's fine. But if they kiss, that's okay as long as it's between a man and a woman and they're fully clothed. And the woman can take her top off, and that's okay still as well. The guy's taking his top off. That we're talking a different game here. These are all rules that make perfect sense.
Oh, yeah, certainly, yes. Television, man. Well, weird concept.
Yeah. We then get a very brief scene with the Russian soldier and the captain. That's a very good line of dialogue where the soldier's like, this isn't a war, this is a massacre, which I thought was really good. It would have been elevated if we could hear the fighting in the background, but instead it's just a very, it's just kind of drizzly. It's very quiet.
Yeah. And also the rain continuity isn't 100%. In one shot it's raining heavily. The next shot it's kind of light.
Yeah. And they basically decide they're going to go and destroy the Ultima machine, which, they should have come to that solution a little bit quicker, I think.
Just a little bit.
We then cut to, as you described, the nipple room. It is the big room full of bombs. Again, I still don't see the nipples on them. But it's a big room full of bombs, and we have a conversation between Fenric, Big Blue Boy, and Commander General Bad Guy, where he's a bit upset that, his men are getting killed.
Yeah, surprisingly. But also, it turns out, I guess it's the Big Blue Man that's called the Great Serpent.
Yeah, that was my assumption. Is big. He doesn't really look like a snake.
This reminds me of the Grand Serpent from Doctor Who Flux. Remember that? Very insightful, useful character that did a lot.
He took over UNIT.
Well, he didn't take over UNIT, he started UNIT, kind of?
Sure. But he was there, and then he got killed.
God, what a storyline.
It's
interesting.
It's interesting that this guy's called the Great Serpent when he's very clearly modeled after an octopus.
Yeah,
he's got an octopus head. That he's a big blue octopus man, and why not the Great Octopus, or Octoman?
Just call him Mr. Blobby and get it done with.
He doesn't look like Mr. Blobby though.
Make him pink and he'll look like Mr. Blobby.
No, he wouldn't. He'd look even more like an octopus if you made him pink.
What species do you think Mr. Blobby is?
Not an octopus. I think he's I'm thinking about what he is in my head. He's like a bowling pin. That's his species. He's like a sentient bowling pin.
What his name is Mr. Blobby?
Yeah.
I just googled him, and in one image he has a big cock.
But he doesn't look like an octopus, though, does he?
He does. That's the second image I saw. I sent you it in Discord.
Yeah, the second image. Yeah, it's like an inflatable Mr. Blobby, not so much. It's just
it's an inflatable Mr. Blobby, but he has a little pee-pee.
Yeah, no, he looks like a bowling pin.
Oh, and there's a bloody Mr. Blobby. That's the fourth image.
And Mr. Bloody.
There's a Lego Mr. Blobby.
Indeed, there is all of these things. But we find out that the Great Serpent is basically evil, and I was shocked at this revelation that he was going to be a bad guy that's working with the bad guys, and they're going to poison the world to take over the world, basically.
There is a lot of bad guys in this story, isn't there?
There's three.
Yeah, there's more than that. There's the Hammervors, very individual bad guys.
I suppose, but they do nothing, and they're not much of a threat. They also in this episode really get pushed to the sidelines. You kind of forget that they're there. Same with the vampire
two
girls.
Yeah,
they just kind of explode at a certain point, if I remember correctly. It falls into every classic Who problem when they start introducing too many villains, isn't it? They remember they've got a 20-minute runtime.
It's like Avengers Endgame kind of levels.
Yeah.
Too many characters.
But at least that had the runtime to deal with it. This does not. So we then cut to a man slipping in mud as he's running up to the Doctor and Ace. And is it muddy because of real rain, or is it muddy because of the fake rain? Because the mud comes back in a big part later on at the end of the episode.
This is muddy because of real rain. And I presume the line where the Doctor's like, all part of Fenric's evil game, no doubt, like this weather, is improv.
Maybe. But the part to me that feels like bad improv is when the Russian soldier comes up and the British soldier's like, hey, we should team up and fight the real enemy. And the other guy's like, that's a good plan. Yeah, I agree. We should be friends now. It's maybe it's just the way it's delivered. It's just, it feels really awkwardly ham-fisted, where you're messing around, say that you're doing an imaginary game at school with your friends, and you go, hey, wait, we should team up, and the other kid's like, yeah, we should team up, and then you go off to go punch another kid. I don't remember school very well.
I think it would probably help if there was a camera shot change, because it stays in this wide shot for a bit too long. The guy's basically turning his back and saying, well, hey, we should team up.
It's probably because it's so muddy, they could only really have the camera in a tripod and without keeping it off the mud. Otherwise, slip and slide and break a camera.
So, in the extended cut, as the Russian dude is giving Ace his badge, we do get close-ups, whereas in this TV version, it's all two shots, which is really interesting because I think the close-ups actually really work for this scene.
Yeah, that is weird. But yeah, so speaking about that scene with the badge, we then get that scene with what happens with the doctor and the guy, don't know. But Russian man and Ace are now alone, and Russian dude is like, "Hey, you wear the communist insignia of the hammer and sickle on your jacket. That's pretty cool." And Ace is like, "Oh, it's not a real one though." And he's like, "Yeah, well, here's a real hammer and sickle." So, as in the badge, he doesn't just give her a hammer and a sickle. Ace is a communist. That's a cool character trait. Especially for 1980s Doctor Who. Cold War time, having one of your main characters be a communist is pretty interesting.
Ace is a pretty progressive character in general. I love Ace.
Yeah. Calling communism progressive, maybe. In some cases, maybe not so much. It's to each their own. We then get a really stupid scene that I'm sure was terrifying if you were a small kid. Which is some soldiers burst through into a room where all the radio ladies were, and they're all standing in the corner, and then they all turn around to reveal that they're all vampire ladies.
Yeah, they just turn around and being like, "Oh yeah, we went to a spa. Look at our nails."
My question is, why were they all facing the wall?
I don't know. They faced the wall because one of them was like, "Hey, I know a really good way to scare this dude."
Yeah, this will be really funny. Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously the lightning strikes indoors because that's how lightning works. It's very dramatic lightning.
Yes, it is. It knows when to go. But two guys run away and the other guy doesn't run away. He decides, I'm going to crouch down as these people approach me, and then they all kind of swarm him and kill him. It's an awkwardly paced scene.
Yeah, but as Doctor Who, every scene is an awkwardly paced scene.
Yeah. We then get the scene where Ace and the Doctor burst into the lady in the baby room. The Doctor grabs the chest set and goes to leave again, but Ace is like, "Oh, I can't leave these two. I've got to look after them, make sure that nothing bad happens to the baby." And the Doctor's like, "Oh, okay, well, don't leave. Bye."
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, what is it with you and this baby, man? What the fuck?
This baby man. Is it a baby
this
man?
Baby, well, it is a baby man, but, it's technically a baby woman in the script.
Yeah. But yeah, he leaves, and we cut to Crane, the lady that likes to drink blood from straws, as she gets slowly murdered by vampires as Fenric teleports there, and he's like, you were so mean to me before I was Fenric, and now you're going to die. And then we get a shot where he does genuinely look very happy that she's getting killed.
Yeah, he just basically smiles into the camera.
It's like such a
brilliant.
joyful smile, though. Like, it's like not even like a sinister smile. It's just like he's having a good day sort of smile. But yeah, it's a lot of death and a lot of the thunder and lightning and the music's going. It would be a very scary episode, I would say, if you were watching it for the first time as like a young kid. It'd be a pretty spooky one.
I remember being kind of frightened by this episode, of the vampires. Kind of, apart from the ones with the nails. I was like, okay, the ones with the nails are kind of silly.
I think it's too dated for it to have actually scared me as a kid. It be the way it's lit mainly is what makes it less scary for me. If this was more modern, it would be a lot darker. Because it makes it spooky that you can't see the bright artificial blue on the silly rubber costumes. Lets your imagination do more of the work.
Yeah, I don't think I was scared as much as I just remember some of the scary moments because it left an impression on me.
Yeah, because you were terrified.
Yeah. Kind of.
We then cut briefly to Ace and the lady as they're barricading up the room that they're in, and we cut away from them to a Russian soldier who gets shot in the knee by evil general man.
Isn't that a meme? Arrow in the knee?
It's from Skyrim. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it is. It is. Used to be an adventurer like you until I got an arrow in the knee.
Yeah.
That's what about 90% of the guards say whenever you walk by them. Or they go, let me guess, someone stole your sweet roll. Terrible impression, but line for line accurate. Anyway, the Russian guy gets shot in the knee as Captain General Bad Dude is like, you Russians were never our allies. You're always going to betray us, so I'm just doing it first. And then that guy is like, yeah, well, screw you. and then the general dude can't think of a good comeback, so he just leaves. Like, he doesn't even kill this Russian dude who could still destroy, because he's still got a working gun. He could still destroy the machine. He's just got a bullet in the knee. He's not going to die anytime soon.
Yeah, but the general storyline here just feels kind of wasted. He's just wandering around room to room, just seeing who he can shoot.
So we run out of stuff to do, and they haven't killed him yet, you know? But yeah, not killing the Russian dude makes literally no sense to me. I don't understand why they didn't do it. They're killing people off in every scene. Why not just kill off this guy as well?
I know.
Where do we go after that? We then go to Ace, the lady, and the baby. And it's a pretty decent scene. It's not the best scene. I found myself... it's not the best scene with them. It's like every scene with them is good, but this isn't the strongest scene with them. I found myself not really listening to what they were saying because I kept getting distracted by the baby.
The baby looks at the camera, looks at the boom mic, looks at everything.
Yeah, and it spends a long time looking at the camera.
But yeah, this scene is basically Ace just talking about the events of Ghostlight for his old house that I felt evil in, and I just had to burn it down, you know, as you do.
Yeah, a reasonable reaction to things. And then vampires burst through the windows, and it was a moment where I went, oh my god, the baby, because the lady leans forward, and clearly the baby wasn't expecting her to lean forward, and she kind of hits its head off her shoulder. I was like, Jesus Christ. And then we like cut, and they're like walking about, and they're carrying the baby and lifting it out through this window. The baby does not need to be in these scenes.
So the reaction to the herbivores jumping through the window was a real reaction because the director wanted a natural reaction, so he didn't tell them what would happen and when. So suddenly we just got a big fright, which, with a baby, that's a bit of a dangerous move.
That seems like a bad move to do when you've got a baby
and then,
on set.
Later on, when we're running around in the mud, Sophie Hottridge nearly dropped the baby because she slipped, which is again... But the director really was insistent on getting a real-life baby and not a doll, because obviously the baby comes into play in this episode, and if you're distracted by a fake baby, it feels less authentic.
I'm distracted by the real baby. I'm not focusing on the plot because I'm like, they're going to hurt this baby.
Yeah.
You know, or the baby's gooing and guying and messing up the audio takes.
It feels like a lot of these shots, it could have just been off-screen or, wrapped up entirely so you don't see it, whether or not it's a real baby.
Yeah. Like you could have scenes with the real baby when they're sitting down talking.
Yeah.
And then when the action scene comes, it's got a cloth over its head. You would not lose anything from it. But meanwhile, the Doctor has been trying to set up a chessboard inside a random room that he's in, and
he's in a nipple room.
Yeah. And which wasn't Fenric just in there? Didn't we just see Fenric and the blue guy just in that room last scene?
But when he left to kill the straw lady. I mean, also the general is just in that scene as well.
Yeah. What the blocking, the locations don't matter at this point. People are where the script says they need to be.
Again, we just teleport from place to place.
Yeah. The Doctor's setting up this chessboard. He doesn't exactly remember, and then he does remember. It's interesting one. I wasn't expecting it to be like the last move, basically. Like, can you solve? I was expecting it to be like sit down and do a whole chess game, and then have like a cool discussion with the villain. But instead, it's like solve this one puzzle, which is an interesting choice to make, I suppose.
But then we cut back to Ace and Kathleen as we're running around, and Ace is like, oh yeah, just go to my grandma's. And my question is, who is the grandma? Because she's telling her grandma to go to her grandma, so I presume that's her dad's mum. But also, her dad's mum would have been about 20 at this point. And when Kathleen turns up to her grandma's house, she's going to be very confused by this 20-year-old who's like, I'm not a grandma.
So the thought that I had was slightly different than that. I assumed, because she says, take this to my nan will look after you, that the address that she gives is actually an empty house. That, it's a house for sale or something. And so when this lady gets there, she's like, oh, nobody's here, but it's for sale or whatever, I can just move in. And then it becomes her nan's house, because obviously this lady is her nan, and she just kind of forgets that she said that because timey-wimey. So it's like this self-completing loop, you know? So it became her nan's house because Ace said to go there because it's already her nan's house.
Okay,
it's like this time paradox thing.
You can presume that later on the Doctor went back in time and bought the house for her nan.
Sure, yeah.
Which is something which will come in like later canon, where the Doctor will go back to Ace as a toddler and basically apologize for what he does later on in this episode, and apparently in a book or something.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yeah, it's like one of those self-completing paradoxes, isn't it? You know, when was the original nan's house? You know, because she lived in that house because she was told to go to that house because Ace said that it was her nan's house, even though it only became her nan's house because Ace said to go there in the first place. Like
that's a great theory.
Yeah, it's a fun paradox. But they drive off in the car. There was this really weird moment, and I get what they were going for, but for me it felt so awkwardly unnatural when Ace kisses the baby and goes, "I'll always love you." To me, that felt so forced. I was like, "Oh, I don't buy that." Like,
this is a baby she spent maybe 4 minutes with, and she spent like 5 minutes with the lady as well. It's like,
yeah.
Then
The lady's like, "Have my baby's head shot," which was even weirder.
Yeah, the connection is a bit too strong this quickly, but you know, they have too little time to develop it, and we need to develop it, obviously, and it works in the end.
Yeah, and then the two vampire ladies start approaching, and we cut to Fenric and Big Blue Boy, and you know, he's like, you know, go, we're going to destroy the planet and stuff, but you've got to get rid of the other two vampires first. And I was like, why?
Yeah. So in the original extended edition, before the take the poison line, the scene of Fenric would have opened with him reacting to the Doctor making this move. He'd just jump suddenly and be like, "Oh, the Doctor's made this move." And then there's also another cut where the blue blobby guy is just like, "On the other herbivores," Fenric replies with, "Oh yes, they've been so useful. How could we have managed without them? You know how to kill them." Which I presume is just sarcasm. He's just like, "Oh yeah, they've not been useful." And then
that guy just doesn't understand it's sarcasm and kills them.
I guess. I don't know.
I don't understand why he'd want to kill them. And also, right, it doesn't make sense because you have this perfect ploy to kill them right now. Because Ace is holding a picture of the baby she loves and has faith in. Yeah. And what did we establish was the weakness of these vampires? The thing, you know, having faith in objects. Ace could literally just present the picture of the baby and kill these two vampires, and you can kill them in the exact same way and not have this problem of Big Blue Boy turning on the vampires for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why they didn't do that. The picture doesn't play into anything now. She just has a picture of a baby for no reason.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is really random. Yeah.
But the effect of the two girls melting was really good. Like, you see their skin start to turn gray, then they're like clearly like a mannequin with a melted face, and then that face turns into like a skull and breaks apart.
The effect is really solid, but you know, in the original storyboards it was supposed to be so much more graphic, and I'll read a little excerpt.
Of course it was, because they didn't know they were writing an episode of Doctor Who when they made this.
So Jean's fingers start to drip. The face melts with her eyeball slithering past her chin. Fleshy slime gushes out of her trouser legs, leaving only two skeletons. Their skulls clash against each other. There's an explosion. One skull bounces across the grass, and Ace says, "Wicked."
Yeah, that'll play for dinner time on a Wednesday.
The face melts with her eyeball slithering past her chin. Oh my god. But yeah, John Nathan Turner was like, "Okay, this is way too graphic for a kid's show. Please don't do this." And this is the version we got, which is good enough, I think.
Yeah, I think it does the same job without being overboard. So Fenric walks into the room behind the Doctor and his chess set, and the Doctor's like, "You couldn't resist the puzzle, could you?" So can Fenric just smell chess?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, there's some sort of psychic link between the Doctor and Fenric with this game. I'm not exactly sure why or how, but you know.
Yeah. But there is, and he's like, "Oh, you're right, Doctor. I can't resist this. I gotta just take a wee look here." And he goes to try and solve the puzzle.
It's like me and you when we used to play Scrabble online.
Yeah, and then I beat you all the time, and you got upset, and now we don't do it anymore.
Oh yeah, that's certainly how it went. Oh yeah.
It took like a year and a half
for you to beat me.
For me to start beating you, and then I started beating you consistently.
No.
Yeah,
and also we don't do it anymore because Messenger doesn't have the game anymore. I don't think.
Yeah, and also I don't like you.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
you know, that's fair.
But no, yeah, I got good at Scrabble, just to beat you. But we then cut to a random British soldier who wanted to be friends with the Russians again, and he's trying to pick up the Russian with the sore knee outside of the Ultima machine, and Captain General Bad Guy comes back in, and he's like, "You walked it." He's just waiting for people to go into this room so he can shoot them in the knee. Yeah,
it is really weird. He just didn't kill them, and obviously he gets shot in this scene, which is...
he gets shot by the Russian dude he failed to kill last time, and he dies.
It feels like the writer wanted something more dramatic here, but he was suddenly had a deadline coming up, and he was like, "Oh shit, I forgot to write this part, and I have to really quickly rush in."
Mm-hmm.
And we got this.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't really add anything to the story. He could have died last episode.
It just gets rid of a character they had nothing left with. You know, he could have just got killed by that Russian dude. You know, and when he gets shot in the knee, the Russian guy then just shoots him like, haha.
Fenric just killed Judson's nurse. Why not kill the guy who disabled Judson in the first place? That'd make sense as well.
Yeah. But yeah, that would have actually been good. We then cut to the Doctor, who is suddenly underground with Big Blue Boy. How either of them ended up there, don't ask. They're just there now.
Yeah, this scene in the extended cut lasts about a minute more, and it still doesn't explain why the Doctor is suddenly down here.
But why the Big Blue Boy's there, because that's not where we left him. You know. But this is where the Doctor is like, he's kind of monologuing at the Big Blue Boy, and he's like, you know, you come from the future full of slime and gross stuff, and you got traveled back in a time storm, and he's talking about a bunch of stuff I don't really care about. He's basically just threatening the Big Blue Boy, like, you know, this will be your undoing. This is what you've messed up here, boy, and I'm gonna absolutely destroy you.
Yeah, so in the extended cut, he kind of explains what is going on and how he's connected to Fenric. So Mr. Blobby is like, "I am the last living creature on Earth. I watched my world dying with chemicals and I could do nothing. My world is dead." The Doctor replies with, "You're very patient. Carried back thousands of years in a time storm to 9th century Transylvania, then waiting for 1,000 years more." The Ancient One says, "Without the flask, I was trapped." The Doctor says, "Yes, the flask. I trapped him like an evil genie." Ancient One says, only he can return me to the future." The Doctor says, "So you're like a faithful servant. You followed the flask." And then the Ancient One is like, "A merchant bought it from Constantinople. I followed him through Europe. I followed the Viking pirates who stole it. Followed it here." And the Doctor says, "Another of Fenric's games." Which adds so much. It makes a lot more sense, kind of.
It makes more sense as to why Fenric and the Big Blue Boy are friends.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make me care.
Yeah, fair enough.
I do not have any connection. Big Blue Boy just seems like a villain. You know, he's just generic monster villain because they need to have a monster sidekick. You know,
I don't see him as a villain. I see him as kind of like a misunderstood kind of hero. Kind of. He just wants to return to his future, and he's just doing what he does to get to his.
But when we get introduced to him, you know, he's monster villain guy, and then we get that discovery of maybe he wasn't such a bad dude after all when he commits suicide. Spoilers.
Yeah.
But you know, it's I still don't know if I think the vampires are even needed in this story. You know.
I'm mixed because in the end it all adds up. Like every plot point makes sense in some sort of way. You can't have one without the other, but at the same time, when you're watching it, you're like, okay, does this need to be here?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, I feel like you could come up with a way for, it to end without needing the vampires. But the vampires, I guess, give it that kind of B-movie feel.
Yeah,
that
the
you wouldn't get
vampires
otherwise.
also add the whole faith element, which is important to what Ace goes through later. Like,
Or at least it would be if she actually killed the two vampire girls and didn't just have them killed for her. That would have been such a poignant moment for her character.
Yeah, there is a bit too much elements going here. It's like too much elements, and it all adds up in the end. But it's just kind of complex, and
It all
doesn't-
adds up, but it's just a bit jank.
Yeah, fair enough.
But we then go to Ace, who comes bombarding into the room where Fenric is working on the chess set, and he's not having a good time. He's like almost melting onto the table, like, I don't know the solution. It's a really good performance.
And also, the actor's eyes are completely bloodshot.
Yeah, I think it adds to the performance, honestly, because it makes him seem like he's more strained and stressed out. He's tensing himself so much, he's burst the blood vessels in his eyes because he just can't, or he just hasn't blinked in so long trying to see the solution to this puzzle, But he can't really see that it's Ace and not the Doctor because he assumes that she's the Time Lord. And, he's like, just tell me the solution. I give up. Just tell me the solution. I can't do this. And Ace is like, oh, I have no idea what the solution is. Bye. And she leaves the guy.
It is a lot of characters leaving one room to go into another room to go back to the same room they were in before.
Yeah, which is what's about to happen with Ace, because we cut briefly back to the Doctor to continue his monologue that we just talked about. And then Ace walks into the room with the two soldiers, the one that got shot in the knee and the one that didn't, who are friends now. And there's a lot of communist propaganda sort of stuff going on here, where I think one of the communist guys even got the line coming up where he's "Workers Unite," like, okay, let's do this, Doctor Who revolution. But she walks in to the dude, to the two guys, and they're like, oh yeah, no, we're fine, we're friends now. The pawns, work together to beat the thing. I think there's this really good line where it's wars waged by politicians and we're just, their pawns or something like that.
Yeah.
And that lets Ace figure out the solution to the puzzle. Dun, 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 dun.
Some really good thematical stuff here. It's just a lot of... It's just a bit overwritten, I would say. It's just so much subplots, so much characters, and it feels like it could have been tightened up a bit.
Yeah, speaking of a lot of plot, we then cut to the Russian guy, the Russian general, who is suddenly where Fenric is. How did he get there? Don't worry about it. But he's like, it's time to die, Fenric, and he's going to shoot him in the head, which I was like, yeah, fair do. You should have just done it from the other side of the room. You didn't need to run up close and then give a wee speech. But this is a TV show after all.
Yeah.
And Fenric is like, oh, do you know why you got chosen for this mission? And he's like, yeah, because I speak English, my grandmother was English. And he goes, yeah, your grandmother was this Emily person who was daughter of this other dude who was mentioned earlier. I forget his name. What was it? David Savanic or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, basically her dad was part of the Viking descendants. So like his great-grandfather... Or his grandfather? His grandfather was part of these Viking descendants, and which means that he's got a part of the Fenric curse within him, which means he's a wolf of Fenric, which was a line delivered really well by the actor. The way that he said that, it's like, you're one of the wolves of Fenric was cool. And then the Russian guy's like, well, I'm just going to shoot you. And we cut away from the scene with a shot of Fenric's face looking up at the gun. And you're left to like, oh, maybe he got shot. But it's that look where it's like, oh no, something's going on here, isn't it?
Do we ever see Judson's body again? I don't think we do.
I assume he explodes.
He probably does. But yeah, finally we're realizing, oh yeah, this is why the Russians are here. It's because of this whole lineage of the Vikings, and
it's a very convoluted plan, isn't it?
It is. But part of his character is he likes to play games, and this is something he's been planning for like thousands of years. So it kind of does make sense in a way.
Is his plan dependent on the Doctor showing up?
I think so. No.
Let's break
'cause-
down. Hang on, I want to break down what his plan actually is, because so Fenric's plan: create the machine, trick, I guess, the general dude into thinking he's going to be gassing innocent Russians, by putting gas in the machine. Why do you need to put gas in the machine? I guess to lure the Russians to come and. No, you don't.
It doesn't make
The
sense.
gas in
if
the
you think
machine
about
doesn't
it.
make sense. The gas in the machine doesn't play into anything because you could just have the machine and then get the same Russians to come and take it regardless. So the gas in the machine, I guess, was just that dude's original idea. So the Russians come take the machine. Fenric shows up somehow, but even though he's in the white pot, isn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't that what summoned Fenric?
Yeah, Fenric is he's a genie trapped in the bottle. I don't think he has. I'm confused about this. I don't think he has anything to do with Judson other than Judson has the curse of Fenric.
Okay, but the white jug exploded from behind a wall.
Yes.
How?
Because he was trying to break free, I guess. Because, like Aladdin, you can see the genie trying to move the pot a little bit, trying to move from the inside. I guess he has some kind of force on the outside.
The plan
of it,
doesn't make sense.
it doesn't make sense.
If you remove all of the plot elements of that are related to the Doctor or Judson,
Yeah.
the story doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and also the curse itself to make the herbivores and their only weakness is faith, and it gets really convoluted and messy, but it's a fun
entertaining.
time. It's
fun.
fun.
It's good.
You just don't have to think about it. Just shove popcorn in your face. That's all you have to do.
So, Ace comes into the room where now it is a Russian dude working on the chess set, and she doesn't seem to notice or care that Fenric seems to have vanished from this room, and she tells the solution immediatally.
I guess he did vanish, because otherwise she'd be like, "Oh my god, there's a corpse on the floor."
Yeah, she'd be like, "Oh, nice, you killed Fenric. Mission accomplished. I don't need to tell you the solution to the game anymore."
She doesn't seem to be concerned about the fact that her almost boyfriend is looming over this chess piece, speaking very sinisterly.
See, when she came into the room, she became temporarily blind. But yeah, so she tells the solution to the puzzle immediately, and the solution is the white pawn and the black pawns team up to take out the king, which is just not how chess is played. You go to a tournament, try doing that, see if they let you win.
It's just a metaphor at this point. It's like, it doesn't make sense, but it's a metaphor that kind of works if you squint real hard at it.
Yeah. Though, you could say it was done on purpose to not make sense. It's a sort of this impossible puzzle that was never meant to be solved because the solution requires cheating.
And also, do you understand what happens if the Doctor wins the game? Does Fenric just go back into his bottle? Is that what happens?
My assumption was the Doctor can't win the game because he's set it up so that the only way to win is for the white and the black pieces to team up, which means that Fenric just has to sit there forever, not able to make his next move, because he can't follow the Doctor's move, and so he's got this eternal turmoil of, what's my play? What's my next move in chess? And at a certain point, the timer's supposed to go, and you just call it a stalemate. It makes sense if you look at it from a distance. It's got cracks if you start dissecting it a bit.
Like, it just makes less and less sense as we talk about it in this episode. It's like, okay, why is there a game? What? Why? Who?
Yeah, all of those questions. But new Fenric is like, oh, thanks. He turns around and we get a pretty good reveal. The effect's much better this time than it was last time of the evil Fenric eyes. They look huge. His pupils they've made to be just ginormous.
The eyes look a bit better, but you can still see there's a lot of grain on the film because obviously they had to darken the room.
Yeah. And his eyes also change color the next time. They go from green to red, which just don't worry about that, I guess.
But that's what happens to the previous Fenric. When he woke up, they're green, and then all of a sudden in this episode, they're red.
Yeah, I don't understand. Maybe they go green when he wants them to glow.
Yeah, maybe he just go green when he's like, okay, I have to reveal to this person that I'm evil now.
Yeah, and the doctor runs in, and there's some really awkward blocking where behind her, he's like, there's like not a lot of space between her and the door and where the doctor is.
Yeah.
And he runs in and he goes, Ace! And then he just stops moving. And then the camera slowly moves, and then lightning hits the table and fires. It's this, like, just slightly awkward trying to maneuver around this small set and not quite working. And then
lightning strikes inside as well. It's very strange.
It's there's an open window in the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
You just didn't see it earlier. Even though it's raining and there's no water getting in, that's because it's not raining there. It's like
how earlier on it was raining, but when it wasn't raining because the doctor had to be like, it's not raining.
This is one of those rare cases where it's not raining, but there's still lightning.
Yeah. But it also is raining. But it's not.
But it not through the window. Yeah. Where the lightning comes through. But, New Fenric starts going on this big monologue where he's like, this was all part of my plan. All these people, all these pieces were moving exactly how I planned it. And even you, Ace, are part of my plan. You see that baby that you've grown so attached to. That is your mother in 30 years' time. She will grow up and have you, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And the whole time, I'm just thinking, how does he know any of this information? How does he know the baby's...
But he was the guy who planned the whole time storm in Ace's bedroom in the first place. He planned the whole meeting the doctor part. So he was behind this whole last 2 seasons, basically.
Yeah, but like how?
Yeah, but how? I don't know
how. Because he was trapped in a bottle. Or something.
Maybe he did it before he got trapped in the bottle and was like, okay, I'm going to be trapped in the bottle by the doctor, but when I get out, I have to set up all these events into play.
I've solved this problem already.
Yes.
Don't make part of your plan getting stuck in a bottle, and just go to the winning part.
The being stuck in a bottle part probably wasn't planned. He was like, okay, there's no way to avoid being stuck in a bottle for all these years.
This is a guy that can plan to the nth degree 30 plus years of this child's life to manipulate Ace, but a single game of chess makes him just stop dead in his tracks.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's not great. It's not great when you really think about it, but it's great. It's great in terms of what it does for future of Doctor Who. The modern era does shit like this all the time. Whether it's like all these weird coincidences that bring the Doctor and Donna together, or when Clara got that phone call from Missy in Series 7 regarding the phone call to the Doctor, and we didn't find out how the Doctor and Clara met. Who arranged the meeting of the Doctor and Clara all those years? Yeah,
the main difference of those are they make sense.
They make sense.
Whereas this is just kind of an omnipotent villain that was like, I was behind it all along. Mwahaha. Even though like nothing was ever set up that he was actually behind it. He's just saying that he is now. Yeah. Whereas that stuff had set up previously. And that's just, I think, television plots becoming more complex and evolving. Yeah. And being able to tell that story in a cohesive way, whereas back then you didn't really have that opportunity, and this was really, the big monster monologue was the only time that you could do it. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't buy Fenric as a villain. I don't buy that he's this omnipotent genius guy. I think his monologue's good. I think the performance from the Russian dude's really good. I just think there's so many convenient inconsistencies with his story.
I totally agree with you. But I like Fenric as a character. Just I don't believe he was involved all those years ago, and it wasn't written that way in the first place. It was like a last minute addition, just to be like, okay, why did Ace get caught in a time storm? It doesn't make any sense, and this is a explanation that he tried to shoehorn in 2 years later.
Yeah. I love stuff like that.
But this does a lot for Modern Who. This is basically the template of what Modern Who is to the modern companion.
I think it would be interesting Fenric's very much dead, but when has that ever stopped Doctor Who to have Fenric come back in a more modern era?
Yeah.
Try to have this omnipotent, super genius villain with a more modern Doctor Who script, with a writer that can deal with something that complex. Could be an interesting villain to see. Maybe he was behind the Timeless Child all along. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
You could just say it. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, Fenric is part of his plan. So Timeless Child, Fenric's planning that, wasn't he? What else doesn't make sense? Can't ride a bike. That's part of Fenric's plan. Everything.
I don't think it's a case of like bad writing. It's just a case of there's not enough time to really establish what's going on here, and I think the main thing is the writer is trying to be a bit too ambitious in what's going on here, because this is the first time Doctor Who has ever done like a multi-season arc, quote unquote, because this wasn't intended to be an arc, but it kind of is. But yeah, it's basically the first time, and I think he's doing a decent job. It's just it's kind of primitive in terms of what we expect today as a modern audience.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cheesy fun.
Yeah.
It's a big cheesy villain. Strangely, it kind of, to me anyway, I think it would make more sense if it was just the Master. If the Master just planned to set Ace up for failure just to mess with the Doctor, and we get the Master in the next story anyway. It's a bit samey having the Master be the villain all along for Doctor Who, but at least there's that connection. I think just having Fenric have no connection but him be the mastermind behind all of this is really, like, even if you did an episode 2 seasons ago where you see the Doctor defeat Fenric, and then we get this reveal now that he actually, wanted to lose in that episode 2 seasons ago, and this was all part of his plan to set this thing up. I think that would make it work better for me. It's the fact he was created just for this episode that isn't sitting with me.
I like that this is a villain from the Doctor's past that we've never seen before. I just think the episode itself should have focused a bit more on the whole Fenric thing, because Fenric only really has one episode to do anything in. He just pops up at the end of part 3 and just kind of... the
just goes, like, I'm the villain now. By the way, I did everything.
Yeah. I feel like maybe if this had another part or another two parts, this could have been expanded on a bit more. Just a bit more focus as well.
It falls into the episodic nature of or how self-contained each of these Doctor Who stories are in classic Who, because again, if this was more modern, Fenric would have been mentioned in a previous episode,
or like in the background, written on a piece of paper, like Saxon or whatever.
Or it would have been little seeds, planted throughout, so that big reveal comes and you get that, oh my god, it's finally Fenric, and you feel like you know who this character is without them just dropping it like a ton of bricks on top of your head. But yeah, that just comes with modern plotting and planning.
I like this twist in premise as well, though. Like, I honestly don't think we'd have Modern Who being Modern Who without this kind of twist. Russell T Davies kind of perfected it with his, the whole domestic lifestyle of the TARDIS companions. This is bits in here. This is like the first time we get to know Ace's mum or any companion's parents or whatever, and also the whole story arc. The idea of a story arc containing in several seasons, whatever. It works in principle. It's just it doesn't work in 1980s Doctor Who because they're so, as you said, self-contained format. It doesn't really work in terms of like it needs to be like a season-long kind of arc in the background.
Yeah. It's a fun premise, and A for what's the word? A for effort, kind of D- for execution. Like it's a good idea, executed not in the best way.
But I like for this. This is season 26. The last few years of this show wasn't that great. It starts picking up at season 25, but this is when the show's trying to take risks. It's trying to take itself in the new direction of being for the 21st century, kind of, even though the 21st century wasn't near yet, but you know what I mean. It's trying to change itself, so it keeps being renewed.
Yeah, which doesn't work.
Yeah, it gets cancelled when it gets sent to America for a year.
The rest is history. The rest is history. But the scene continues where, Fenric is basically giving the Doctor an ultimatum at this point where he's like, I'm going to kill Ace if you don't kneel and submit to me. And the Doctor goes, okay, kill Ace.
Yeah. Which is... Yeah, did you see this coming? Did you know anything about this?
I knew nothing about this. I did not see it coming, and I thought the Doctor's monologue that he goes into now, where he's like, "You think I care about this person? They can't even pass their chemistry tests. They're this useless teenager. I only brought them along because I knew you were planning something. I was setting you up for failure." Type deal, where it's like, Jesus Christ, it's this sudden turn where Sylvester McCoy is just this evil man suddenly,
Yeah, Ian Briggs, the writer of this episode, said the Doctor could be interpreted as the villain of this season, which is 100% fair, because he straight up psychologically abuses Ace in this scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he makes Ace think that their entire relationship has been a fallacy, that he is just simply leading her on for her to die.
Yeah.
That he is setting her up just so he can beat this villain. That he cares absolutely nothing about her. It works really, really well. I think Sylvester McCoy kills it with his performance.
Yes. And apparently this goes on into the Big Finish storylines, where apparently Ace stops traveling with the Doctor at one point because she's like, I can't deal with this manipulation anymore. I have to leave you. Which is, fair enough. You go, girl.
And, this causes Ace to break down. And before, the big blue boy, I forgot to mention this, couldn't do anything because Ace's faith in the Doctor was so strong. And now that she's broken down, that faith's no longer there, and big blue boy can attack almost. But instead of attacking the Doctor and killing the Doctor, he starts backing Fenric into the gas chamber. I forget why he does that. And also, Fenric, I'm pretty sure, probably has a gun on him.
But also the guns don't work against these herbivores.
Okay.
Only stakes.
Oh yeah, it just knocks him down, doesn't it? Well, he might have a stake on him. He's been fighting them this whole time, but it's just this. He starts slowly backing up and being like, "Hey, no, listen to me. I told you to kill them." Well, it's that classic Doctor Who villain sort of getting turned on by their own creation, and then he just gets killed by the gas and dies. It's, to me, an incredibly unsatisfying ending to Fenric. He just gets defeated in 2 seconds. He gives his big evil monologue, the Doctor gives an incredible monologue back, and then he dies.
It's underwhelming, and I think part of it also is due to the staging of the whole scene, because apparently they shot a lot more in this scene, but they lost all of the close-ups because somebody on set just destroyed the footage by mistake. So a lot of this scene is in wide shots instead, which is kind of awkward to get around.
Yeah. But they get poisoned by the gas, and the whole building kind of starts falling apart as the fire and explosions start spreading. Presumably more lightning has struck indoors somehow. And the Doctor's like, come on, we've got to get out of here. And Ace just shouts, leave me alone, and goes running out the building. And then we cut to the outside, to the muddiest grass you've ever seen in your life. I think it's mainly, there's not even grass to be seen. It is just brown mud. They go running. Ace slips and falls on her knees. The Doctor slips and falls and just slams his hand into the mud, which when he stands up, he flicks this huge chunk of mud off his hand, and his hand is just pure brown from the mud. It is, I cannot imagine how gross that would have been.
In the next shot, it's magically gone. Sylvester McCoy in the audio commentary is like, okay, maybe, how the Doctor is a Time Lord. Maybe he has magical skin that just gets rid of dirt so easily. That's a headcanon explanation I've never thought of before.
See, what happened is when he fell, he cut his hand on a stone that was in the mud, and so his hand regenerated that skin. As it was regenerating, it also dissolved all the mud that was on his hand.
Yeah, that's fair,
Used a little bit of regeneration energy. Which is fine because he's got an unlimited amount as the timeless child. See, it's all connected.
God's sake.
But this is where the Doctor goes on to say that, he had to say these things because he had to break that faith that Ace had in the Doctor. And, he's trying to rebuild that relationship that he just destroyed in 2 seconds flat, and obviously Ace is kind of a bit hesitant into trusting him.
She's just uncontrollably sobbing in her knees. It's like, it's really heartbreaking for her.
So we get don't start the next episode for it, Fox. I paused it. Okay, well, we're going straight into episode 12. So the episode, we get our last scene where the Doctor and Ace are sitting on some rocks by the lake where the vampires came from, and Ace is trying to come to terms with the fact that child was her mother, because she has this horrible relationship with her mother, yet she loved that baby so much. And the Doctor's like, sometimes love and hate are one and the same thing, and it can be really hard to deal with that sort of thing. And then Ace dives into the water, and we get some shots of her swimming as we hear the voiceover where she's like, "I love you so much, baby." Mwah. It's quite cheesy,
It's cheesy, but yeah, the intent here is that Ace is basically giving herself a baptism. Catherine is saying, "It's all right, Audrey." Ace is saying, "I'll always love you." And there was going to be a third voice of Ace saying, "I hate you, Mum." And the effect wasn't that any of the voices were stronger than the other. It was Ace accepting all three truths, that everything was going to be all right, and that she both loves and hates her mother, which kind of works in theory, but it doesn't work as well in the actual episode. I don't think it carries that weight across.
No, I don't think it carries that weight across either. But she comes out of the water, and somehow the Doctor is on the other side of the beach, stone dry. Don't know how he did that or how he beat Ace there. But she's coming out, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not scared anymore, Doctor." And the Doctor's like, "Oh, good." And then they see the big silly sign that says "Dangerous Undercurrents," and the Doctor's like, "Well, I don't think we have to worry about that anymore." And he goes, "Niet." Which, of course, is French for no.
Yes. Spanish? No? I thought it was Spanish.
It's Russian.
No, it's not.
Yeah, you're right. It's Italian. No. But they, and then we cut to the credits. To me, this ending, I feel like they're trying to tag on this happy ending because it's a very dark and miserable ending to the episode, where because it's like, oh, the Doctor and Ace's relationship, they're joking and they're happy with each other again, but to me it's got this level of superficiality to it where maybe it feels like they're more projecting that. They're like, let's just pretend everything's okay, ha 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 ha, when everything isn't actually okay. I almost think it would have been a braver ending to end the episode with the Doctor being like, "I need you to believe me, Ace, I just said that." I think that would have been a way more interesting ending than the, "Oh no, they're fine, don't worry about it."
Yeah,
Wash
that would
your
have
hands
been
clean.
really strong ending. Yeah, I think in the next episode she contemplates leaving the Doctor, which I'm not sure for which reasons why. I think I would have worked better if it was like, "Oh yeah, I kind of don't like you anymore, Doctor. You just broke my heart." Like, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, that I think would have been a really powerful ending, rather than this like fine ending we get. Like it's a fine ending, and it's got this good character moment with Ace, but I don't think it's the strongest ending you could have had.
Yeah. But, this is actually one of those rare opportunities in Classic Who where, the companion went through a character arc. Did you forget the companions had characters? Because most of the other writers did.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem that even bled into more modern episodes of Doctor Who,
boy.
isn't it?
Oh, boy. But man can't ride bike, but then he could ride bike, kind of.
Yeah. But man had cancer, then he no have cancer, but we no talk about it, too awkward.
Lady gay.
Yeah, and then what's the point in being alive?
Yeah.
I unironically love Dan. He is my favorite Chibnall companion. He is the
excellent.
best. He's so good.
Curse of Fenric.
But that brings us to the end of Curse of Fenric. So, what is your opinion on these all 4 parts, Scott?
You're asking me, yes.
I'm not asking
Yes.
myself.
So yeah, this is a really strong production in terms of what's on screen. The cast is really solid. Sylvester McCoy, Sophie Aldridge are excellent as always. The supporting cast is really fucking good, whether it's the priest or the grandmother or the actor who's playing Fenric, not the second Fenric, but the first Fenric. You know who I mean, Dr. Judson, man. Yeah, it's a really solid production overall. I think it's the one letdown is with the writing, but I don't think the writing itself is bad. It's just trying to be way overly ambitious for Doctor Who in the 80s. But it is a fucking fun time, and I would recommend it to people who just want to check out any old Ace story, because obviously she's coming back in the Centenary Special, and I think this is Ace in kind of her shining moment. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would agree with a lot of that. There are characters in this that I think don't add anything. Or you know, you wouldn't lose anything if you didn't have them. So do you remember the weird annoying lady that's like, don't go to the beach? Don't need her. You know, I think there's some really strong performances. There's some great monologues, which is my favorite thing in classic Who, is when, you know, characters talk. You know, that end, the way that Fenric gets defeated is through the Doctor talking. You know, it is this like 5-6 minute long monologue between the two of them, and then, you know, he just kind of dies, which is unsatisfying. You know, if he could somehow talk his way into being defeated or something like that, I don't know how you'd end that scene really, but I like that it ended with them talking with one another rather than them punching or exploding or, you know, setting a trap to blow up in. Them just sitting there talking and the Doctor having to betray the trust of his companion to defeat this guy, I thought was really cool. I think Ace is definitely the most interesting classic Who companion.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the ones that we've seen, because I remember her.
Yeah. If you remember what she goes through, like obviously Sarah Jane Smith, we covered her and we love Sarah Jane Smith.
Yeah.
But do you remember anything she says or does in that episode apart from leave? No.
She walks around the nuclear facility for 15 minutes. I think it's more 5 minutes. It was like a huge chunk of the episode though.
It felt like that's what this episode is good for. It didn't have any walking around for no reason. It kind of did, but it didn't.
It had teleporting around.
Yeah, which is a lot more interesting than just walking around. You know,
it's a lot more confusing. Yeah, but like the classic companions besides Sarah Jane, who's obviously iconic, that I could tell you that we've met. The Scottish guy in the kilt.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of the same lady wearing a different wig and in different eras, because every single other female companion feels like the same person. You know, after like, even it's a problem that Doctor Who's had since the start with the female companions. You know, Susan leaves, and then the next episode they're like, another young girl that looks like Susan. Yeah, come on board. And she's like basically the exact same as Susan. There's this, you know, just generic female character to travel with the Doctor, whereas Ace feels like something different, and she's a communist. That was something we discovered as well. Communism was really big in this episode. I did enjoy this thing, and I was thankful it was a 4-parter.
Yeah.
You know.
I also like this episode. You know, it's a dark Doctor Who episode, and it goes all the way with the darkness. You know, and it has some amazing themes in terms of like war and having faith. You know, whether it's religious faith or faith in the people you love, which is a really interesting
just imagine
distinction.
if that Ace had that really poignant moment using the faith of that baby to defeat the vampires.
But you know,
then later finding out that her faith in that child was
Yeah.
actually her mother, and she doesn't have faith in it after all. You know, or maybe she does, and she's got this internal conflict within herself. And then their faith with the Doctor shatters, and she's, you know, only got this mother thing. And yeah, you could have had this really cool character moment, but instead, blue guy kills him. That's honestly, it's bugging me. That whole point doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
That's completely fair. I think Curse of Fenric is a messy episode, but it's a fun episode. It has some amazing scenes. It has some amazing cinematography. It has some amazing acting. it's a fun episode, and the extended cut is worth buying on Blu-ray or DVD or whatever. It's worth watching for that. Yeah, it's a really solid story.
Yeah, very good episode.
It's just messy, but yeah.
Yeah. So is classic Q in every episode, though. There's always a bit of mess. But that does bring
mess.
us...
Speaking of mess.
Yeah, me. Hey. That does bring us to the end of the episode. Email us at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com with your Curse of Fenric theories. What's your opinion on Ace, you know? Do you have a favorite companion that you can remember besides Ace? Probably not.
Are you looking forward to Ace coming back this year in 4 months?
Why would you be? Chibnall's writing it. You know, I cautiously optimistic, and as always. But yeah.
We spoke about how this story has too much elements. Think about the Centenary special. There's so many characters, and the Doctor has to regenerate, and we also have to wrap up a billion plot lines. It's going to be messy.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, so send us an email at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com with all your doomsday saying about Doctor Who. In the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook at Who Watches Who, on Twitter at Watches Doctor. We are available on YouTube in video form at Who Watches Who, and this podcast is available in audio form wherever you listen to your podcasts. There's links in the description for everything, even our email address is in the description. Just have a wee old look there and you'll see it. And what have we got coming up next week, Scott? It's something pretty big, isn't it? Oh boy,
yes. Next week we are doing Doctor Who and the Daleks, which is the 1965 Peter Cushing movie where Peter Cushing plays Doctor Who and with his granddaughters Susan Who and Barbara Who and also Ian. It's gonna be a fun time.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to watching it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, so
yeah.
I'm looking forward to experiencing this for the first time. It's I feel like I'm gonna hate it, but
yeah. From what I remember, the sequel is so much better. So it'll be interesting to see how much we hate this movie.
Yeah. But that is coming out next week because it is the 1 year anniversary of Who Watches Who next week.
Does not feel like it. It's fucking mental.
1 whole year of Who Watches Who. It's zipped by, and there's still so many Doctor Who episodes. We still haven't covered the 1st or the 6th Doctor yet.
I know, yeah.
It's like that's after a year. We still haven't covered every Doctor. It's
and we just finally got around to the 7th Doctor almost a year in. Fucking mental.
Yeah. Cut it close with him. But we will see you next week with Doctor Who and the Daleks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.